Begin transmission. Hello, everybody. It is I, Chris, aka Starrapter, for Outer Rim transmission number 64. This week we have a special guest. We are joined by Matthew from the Eye On Canon podcast and Ben. So, first off, what's going on, Matthew? Can you tell us a little bit about what you do with the Star Wars fandom? I know you're a familiar face on the channel. We were at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim. We had a great time collaborating on a couple pieces of content on both our platforms. So how's everything, man?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm in the Culture Slate Network, the Eye On Canon podcast, definitely focusing on comics and novels and a little bit of video games, but also, if we want to talk about Kenobi, because Kenobi's canon. If we want to talk about Empire Strikes Back, Empire Strikes Back is canon. So, and even in a bit of Legends if we want, and lore, big focus on the High Republic. So, Chris, thank you for coming on my massive High Republic Phase 1 recap we did a few months ago. And just looking onward and upward. Little plug. I'll do the plug right now, and we can do another plug a little later. This Monday, just gives you an example of what we do. This Monday, we're talking all about the Crimson Reign crossover event and getting Doc Holocron, our friend Doc Holocron, in to help talk about that. So anything especially to do with the novels and comics, we'll focus on. I won't say, I mean, more than a lot of folks, but not necessarily more than you or either of you guys. You can see some of the novels back here. A completist when it comes to the Marvel comics, especially.
Oh yeah, I just picked up my comics literally like 2 hours before the show shot because the store was running a little bit late getting them. So that's how diehard I am, especially knowing that you were going to be on the show today. I was like, you asked me before about the comics, and you're like, oh, the tractor review was like 18 minutes long, and your show is usually like 4 or 5 minutes long because we usually have roughly the same amount of time when we film our things, or you record and I film them, and it's just like, oh yeah, I got to do that tomorrow at some point. I gotta do 4 comics in a row.
Yeah. So just to clarify, so for those who don't know, so the tractor beam is kind of my 4 or 5 minute per book segment on Spotify audio only. Joel Davis and I have an hour-long show every Mondays, 9 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, over at Eye On Canon Pod. But then the Tractor Beam Comics reviews, inspired by your comics reviews, the little bite-sized. But yeah, you're right. This week it was 4 different comics, which it ties the record. That's got to tie the record, right? For releases in a week.
Yeah.
So.
And
it was fun.
Yeah, so we are joined by Jesse Bennett, who is also at Star Wars Celebration, as well as Joel Davis at Star Wars Celebration. Because this would be like a little like post-mortem Star Wars Celebration conversation or something going on here. So welcome everybody to the chat. And as you all know, or if you're new, we go live every Friday around this time, around 9 o'clock Eastern. And we have this in a downloadable form for anybody listening on the go for your favorite podcast catchers. We are outerrimtransmission. You can find us there somewhere on the internet. Ben, what's going on with you? I know you said something about you were like Anakin Skywalker at some point earlier on in the week. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Well, it's been an interesting week for me. Everyone knows, especially if you watched last week's podcast, you saw I was at Virginia Beach and I got completely fried like Anakin did on Mustafar. Like I was so badly fried I could barely move. Like I couldn't put my hands above my head, couldn't turn my head left or right. Like my whole back, shoulders, arms, my hands were swollen and everything. Like that's how bad I was burnt. So yeah, I felt like Anakin this weekend, and all I needed was pretty much the Darth Vader suit, and I would have been good to go to hop right in the Vader role.
Oh man, did you just not use lotion, suntan lotion?
Oh yeah. No, I use suntan lotion. I had relatives remind me they every half hour, 40 minutes, whatever, and it wasn't even that bad. That's the crazy thing. It was only like 80 degrees on the beach, so it wasn't even that hot. And I just got completely fried. So it was pretty painful to say the least. I didn't sleep for a few days, I would say, because every which way I moved, it was just like extremely painful. And it was pretty bad. So I'm glad the sunburn's pretty much gone away now. So I'm starting to feel better. And now I'm just ready to talk some Star Wars.
Isn't there that meme going around, like the rare, medium rare with the steak, medium, and then you're the chosen one?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely what I became over last weekend.
Oh man, oh man. So, as we do every week, we talk about any kind of Star Wars influence we had for that given week. I'm gonna throw this one to Matthew. What was your week in Star Wars like? Did you do anything cool? Any interesting conversations? Anything you seen? What's going on with Star Wars with you, man?
I reminisced about Star Wars Celebration. No, just last night was the Mysterious Galaxy, I believe, is a bookstore in San Diego, I believe, and they put on a virtual event. Kristen Baver interviewing Adam Christopher on Shadow of the Sith, and some really in-depth, interesting conversations there. Kristen Baver had, a bit of trouble with the internet gods, but she definitely fought through. And Adam Christopher being up at 3 a.m. down in New Zealand, giving some nice insights about his new novel that we're, I believe, going to talk about later. But yeah, definitely enjoyed that. I asked a question about connections with the Greg Pak comic, and especially with Exegol, and he gave a great answer about thinking about how Palpatine has probably developed this plan and the Sith fleet for decades now. And so those little tidbits that events like this, that celebration was able to give, but also thankfully we're still having these virtual events as well.
Yeah, we were in that panel with Adam Christopher, as well as Mike Chen and the other author, I forget her name, for the upcoming Scoundrel, the Princess Scoundrel.
Not Delilah Dawson. Beth Revis.
Beth Revis, yeah, she couldn't make it, but that was cool. We got a lot of insight there, and it was a lot of fun. Again, go to those panels again. You have I have the whole playlist on the channel if you guys want to know anything about Celebration. I have like over 10 videos, not even exaggerating, in that playlist. I was busy that weekend, but yeah, it's really cool getting the insights, getting those videos. I think I watched one about Timothy Zahn talking about the Thrawn novel, so it's pretty cool when they do the deep dives. But it's like, okay, the book came out, please don't spoil it for me. That's why I'm like, I'd rather watch that after I'm done reading the book. But yeah, it's good to hear that it's pretty good. And you got your your question answered. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. And lastly, I just got to say, it's nice that they're still doing those virtual events, even as Celebration is in full swing, even as all these cons are happening. And we can, all the folks down in Southern California still getting all the perks. Well, you can still have some, some virtual events online, connecting New Zealand to the Bay Area, where I think Kristen Baver and the Lucasfilm offices are, to me here in Toronto and everywhere. So glad that we're still keeping those around.
Yeah,
definitely looking forward to more cons and in-person events. But and I got a shout out to the event last week at Scotiabank Theatre, the Kenobi event here in Toronto. That it's not this week, but those kinds of events are still happening as well. And we're having both, and we're going to this hybrid model. And so yeah, that's it was a fun time.
That's the awesome thing, right? Is we have the know-how and the technology to be able to do both now. So there's really so much access to the creators, more than we ever had before, both in person and online. So great stuff going forward. Ben, while you're on vacation, did you see like any cool Star Wars collectible shops or anything like that when you were out and about at Virginia Beach?
Not really. It was more just sitting on the beach the entire time for the most part.
There you
go. But when it comes to Star Wars, like, we got back Monday night late into Tuesday, so I actually had an interesting week in Star Wars in terms of discussion on Twitter with some other fans, which Twitter can be an interesting place to discuss Star Wars these days. So I tweeted. I think you might have saw my post earlier, or my post in the week. So I think, I got really thinking about it, like on our flight home, throughout the week. I was like, man, I really believe, in my opinion, I think there's a lot of, I would say, not lazy creative, but like almost missed opportunities for all of these shows. Like, I'm so burnt out, honestly, on the generic one name character title, like Andor, Kenobi, The Mandalorian, even. The Book of Boba Fett, or I guess Book of Boba Fett's a little bit different, but I mean, I had someone tweet me and say, "Oh, Skeleton Crew," which that's why I didn't include that in that post. But you have these, even Solo, for example, like you have these titles where they're just the character name. And to me, I think even if you're going to do just the character name, at least give an interesting subtitle. Like for my example I wrote down on my notes for this specific segment was, what if they would have named the Kenobi show, for example, Obi-Wan Kenobi, The Path? So you could use The Path many different ways. Like you could use it for Kenobi's journey through the show, Vader's journey through the show, the literal path system they have. Plus you could use it for Reva's character arc. Plus you could use it for, heck, even the Grand Inquisitor's path through the show. Like you could use it for a myriad of things in the show. And it's just like, I think that was a big missed opportunity on Kenobi. And I just feel like, honestly, there's so many creative people at Lucasfilm. Like, it's almost like they're resting on their laurels where it's like, the people will watch it. If we name it Kenobi, they'll come. We don't have to get creative on a subtitle or anything, or even Andor. Like, what if it was like Andor hyphen Rise of the Rebellion or something, or, or whatever, like just something like that. And to me, like, I just think when you have all of these creatives on hand, it's like, I just wish, it would, they would make the titles a little more creative. That's why I was so excited about the Skeleton Crew title, because it's something we don't even know about. Like, it's totally brand new. It's interesting, and, et cetera, et cetera. Like, heck, even the Ahsoka show, like, come on, Dave Filoni, like, give us a subtitle. Yeah. Like, just, I just wish they would go, like, the little bit step further on, creating an interesting subtitle for these shows.
It all feeds into the algorithm, man. I think that's all it comes down to. It's like literally people. Well, when you think about it, right? When you have like a long, drawn out title of something, when people are just having a casual water cooler conversation the Thursday after it releases, they're gonna just abbreviate as short as they can. And if it's a show about Obi-Wan Kenobi, they're gonna just say, "Hey, what'd you think about Kenobi? What'd you think about Andor? What'd you think about it?" So like they want it. They're already feeding into our minds. The people that are developing the titles, like, all right, they're gonna just call it this anyway. Let's just keep it straight and simple. And I think that's really what it comes down to, as well as like just the internet algorithm of it all.
Oh yeah, that's definitely what it comes down to. And like the algorithm, of course. I'm just saying from a greedy Star Wars fan standpoint, like, I think it's better to have a title, like, versus just a generic name. Like, what if we would have went to like A New Hope and the movie would have just been named Luke? Like, okay,
true.
Okay, we'll go with that. We'll go with that. Or in episode 5, oh wait, Luke Part 2, Part 3. Well, I mean that's or Ray Part 1, 2, 3 for the sequel. It's like, that's like my point with that. But I just, I totally get, especially nowadays, like with the algorithm, of course you give the hashtags for all of these shows, hashtag Ahsoka, hashtag Kenobi, hashtag Andor, et cetera, et cetera. It makes perfect sense. It's just annoying, It's like, come on, be a little creative.
Yeah, one of the best. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say, the trick is to think of something creative that also works with the hashtag, works with the algorithm. So the Bad Batch. I mean, it's alliterative, it rhymes, but it's not Clone Force 99. It's not this ragged group of clones or whatever. It's the Bad Batch, which is their nickname in universe. But that one really works well. Here's the funny thing with you talk about Obi-Wan. The show is called Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah. But we all say Kenobi. Even how would you say Kenobi? Even though the irony, of course, is he wants to be known. He doesn't want to be known by as Kenobi. He wants to be known as Ben, because that's got to be in hiding. But for us, right, it's hashtag Kenobi, and you even got the little emoji that automatically pops up. So, Ben, I definitely get your point. I mean, we all want that, especially the point about Luke. That'd be weird. Where do you think of something like the show we had, like Rangers of the New Republic?
Yeah,
I mean, that was a cool.
That was.
I really like that title, actually. Yeah,
best name so far.
And of course, unfortunately, got canceled and folded into The Mandalorian somewhat. But yeah, I hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, so going over what I was doing with Star Wars, it was something I mentioned a little bit earlier, and it's just, I don't usually read the comics at home. So full transparency, I'm lucky enough that my comic store is on the way to work. So every Wednesday, I just get to work a little bit earlier. I basically wait in the parking lot for the store to open. So basically, I start like an hour before I get to the comic store. It opens at 11. I start work at 12. So I just like pull into my work's parking lot. I just flip through the comics real quick. But anyway, they didn't get the comics in on time, so I was like, oh darn it, there's so many of them too. But I was able to get them today. And something that I used to do when I was working my other job, would I pick them up after my other job and bring them home and listen to Star Wars music as I was reading the comics. So that was something I haven't done in literally years. So I just turned on it was just a random best of Star Wars tracks on Spotify, and I just sat here in my room just flipping through the comics at a nice leisurely pace because, you know, when I'm having to go to work, I have to kind of read through them pretty quickly, and I'll go back and read them later when I get home. But it was still kind of cool to like be more immersed, you know, in Star Wars, like with that actual music in the background playing. Do you ever do that, Matt?
No, I've never done that, probably because I'd be all, well, which soundtrack do I pick? I don't know what the story is. I think it might distract me, but I might try it. You know, I might try it for a reread. That I might try doing. I do need total silence when I'm for my first go, but
I agree. I agree. I'm a total silence person too when it comes to reading. Like I just can't have anything on. I just need to just laser in focus when I'm reading something like that.
But it's a fun idea. I might. You know, especially like with audiobooks, for example, I mean, it's a bit different, but we all know the production quality on those audiobooks. So, yeah, maybe, I'll give it a go and let you know.
Yeah. See
what happens.
So we have a couple people in the chat talking. We got this person. Thanks for joining. First time watcher. It looks like we have Delaney just started playing Fallen Order for the new game. So excited. Oh, so they have not played Fallen Order, the greatness of Fallen Order, which is what I conceive as one of the best Star Wars games easily.
Do they know the story? Do they know how it goes?
Well, I mean, I can't wait for Jedi Survivor. It got announced at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim, and it's supposed to be coming out, I think, maybe even possibly in the first couple months of 2023. So there you go. We have Ross saying Stranger Things Season 4 is way better story and better acting than Obi-Wan Kenobi series. We'll get into it, but I might have to agree. With that. So far, I haven't watched all Stranger Things, but I'm enjoying it immensely.
I was going to say, I was going to throw in there, guys. I do have one more quick weekend Star Wars as well. I forgot to mention. So today, I have some cousins in Germany, and my cousin, she sent me a video. So she's like 37, 38 years old, and her son, who's my younger cousin, who's about 13 or 14 now, he challenged her to a lightsaber duel today with my old lightsabers that I gave him back when he was a kid, and she's like, recognize these? And they were my old like lightsabers from Revenge of the Sith, like the Obi-Wan and Anakin one, and they had the Revenge of the Sith, like the Mustafar duel music, the Battle of the Heroes music playing and everything, and it was hilarious just seeing them, just go at it, fighting. And my younger cousin, of course, he was taking it more seriously, and he like whacked my older cousin with the lightsaber, and she's like, "Whoa, stop!" But it was pretty funny, like getting a video like that. I'm like, man, my old lightsabers from like almost 20 years ago are still holding up.
Yeah, that's fantastic,
that's
man.
great.
Yeah, just to throw that in there real quick.
So Matthew, let's talk about the comics, man. Let's take a larger approach to the comics. You mentioned about the Crimson Reign with Doc Holocron you're gonna have on your channel pretty soon, coming up. I voiced my opinions pretty recently on. We'll talk about Crimson Reign for a second here. About Crimson Reign, I feel like it was a little bit lacking in my eyes. I feel like not much happened. It was a little set up, but it didn't really do a whole lot for me to like push the story forward, and I'm really like excited for where it goes in the Hidden Empire, but I think it could have left off, at least with issue number 5, with a little bit more of a bang. So what's your overall thoughts on Crimson Reign, with the storytelling of the Crimson Dawn, with Kira between the events of Empire and Return?
Yeah, I mean, just preparing for Monday, just this afternoon, going through the whole story. Yeah, it was a lot of setup, and I mean, I titled the tractor being, or no, I didn't title the tractor. I titled the episode this coming Monday of like Kira Strikes Back, but yeah, you're right. It didn't have let's say the bombshells, at least from my perspective, that we were maybe expecting. We were maybe expecting, especially with the flagship comic by Charles Soule and Stephen Cummings. I think we were expecting this big, great reveal of something to happen, and
Wait,
it was
there
still
was. There is a big reveal for me.
Okay, fair enough. We can get into it, but I mean, well, yeah. I mean, I'm curious to hear what you think. But what it was, I found and just looking at all the stories, that were going on in the whole crossover, it's a lot of consolidation. The story is a lot of whittling down of different actors. So, for example, in Bounty Hunters, this may be what you're getting at here. It gets whittled down to Tonga versus Vakora, and of course we find out that Cadelia is not just a part of. This is all spoilers. We're getting to spoilers. Just letting you know. I mean, I hope that's okay.
They know I spoil everything with the comics on the
Okay.
channel already, so I'm sure they're fine.
So, yeah, like so it gets whittled down really between Tonga and Vakora, and we find out that Cadelia is not just on the Vermilion with Kira. Kira's kind of taking her under her wing and actually mentoring her a little bit.
Yeah.
Who knows how trustworthy that is? We'll see. We'll see what's happening. What Kira's plan is. But a lot of consolidation whittling down there. Even with the main Star Wars comic, you have everything going with Team Dameron and Leia and Zara, the Tarkin protege. Of course, Zara's whole fleet gets taken out.
Yep.
In part because Kira wants chaos and to sow chaos, but the focus is primarily for that on Leia and the fleet being free. Then I think to mass near Solus and then make an assault on Endor. But that's another thing we need to keep in mind. Then is, I wonder if they're really saving. I mean, clearly yes, they are saving the big beats for Hidden Empire. Even then, they still have to save the biggest of beats for Return of the Jedi, because that's the space they're writing in. So, yeah, I get why people were disappointed. Going into it, we wanted the kind of big bang, big reveals that maybe we got a little bit in War of the Bounty Hunters. We've definitely gotten in previous comics. We definitely in Charles Soule's Darth Vader run, in Greg Pak's Darth Vader run earlier on. Both everything to do with Attack of the Clones and everything to do with Sabe specifically. I'm okay with, I get it. Again, it's kind of this, okay, whatever, but I'm okay with it being okay, whatever, I've come around to it, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest reveal for me was, Prince Zuzor becoming canon. So it's just like, yes, got name dropped.
Sure.
Woo!
I mean, in those little details, little things. I mean, for me, issue number 3 was mind blowing. I mean, you have. So here's a bit of my own background. You have the first legit theologian in Star Wars, and by that I mean professor studying an aspect of the Force. You have the archivist, Madeline Sun, Sava Madeline Sun. So that's, I mean, one of the things that this run was able to do were those little, especially the flagship run, was able to do those little moments of reflection, right? We have that 2-page spread of the Jedi Temple, even Starlight Beacons in there, and reflecting on why the galaxy turned against the Jedi. And Joel and I actually end up doing a whole episode on just that comment, because it's worth reflecting on. It's worth, and I'm not to plug myself too hard, but the type of things to stop and reflect on those things, and to bring Prince Zizor in. I appreciated the way Charles Soule was able to play with the pacing and the timing. Now, in retrospect, I think once we get Hidden Empire, and this is the way Star Wars often works, right? Rebels. I'll make my point, and then I'll say what I mean with Rebels. Once we get Hidden Empire, I think we're going to be able to look back and say, okay, we're satisfied with the fact that this was all this setup now that we got the payoff. And I mean, I trust Charles Soule to do setup and payoff, just like I trusted Dave Filoni. This was my point with Rebels, especially season 4. There, a lot of episodes we thought were the F word filler. Yeah, but they weren't, right? There's no such thing as filler, really, in Star Wars. There's always going to lead somewhere.
Yeah.
So
even if it's not
again,
right away.
to get your point, but I'm okay
with
these little moments.
I mean, I like the structure of it. It just needs a little bit more bang. I like how the first issue, every issue has to do with somebody that's being a part of her plan. The women bounty hunters, I forget, they're the orphans. You had the orphans going out doing the stuff. Then you had somebody else going out causing chaos. Oh, was it Boosh? No, it wasn't. That was
Yeah,
another
Boosh. They're with the tag, dominant tag.
or tag. Yeah.
But I mean, you got this other group called the Knights of Ren, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, that was cool. I know Joel Davis in the chat is saying that's his favorite issue, and
Yeah,
I think that's also
that
my
was
favorite
fun.
issue because it definitely sheds more light on them and how they use the shadow, and you have the actual leader of the Knights of Ren and what his persona is. But as we look to the future of Hidden Empire, do you believe? Because I think it's still possible now. I was really expecting to see a crossover between live action in this. And I
Mhm.
really thought they were pivoting Kira to be at the end of Book of Boba Fett. It's like a after credit thing or something with Crimson Dawn. Do you think
Mhm.
now that she hasn't appeared today, do you think they might actually kill her off in these comics for the last run of those Crimson Reign, which the Hidden Empire in
Yeah.
October?
I mean, everything that's implied at the beginning of Crimson Reign #1, with the Archivist being very dour, and this is the end, and after the fall, or language like
Yep.
that, it really does hint to something. I hope not, because I love her so much, love Kira so much. But it'll be. I mean, all that to say that if it does happen, it'll be hugely impactful. I mean, one thing to say is, you can't go. She wants to go up against a certain Darth Sidious and Darth Vader, the Dark Lords of the Sith, and not even Luke Skywalker could actually do that in that way. You can't actually go against the Sith and live. Rey ends up finding a way to turn Sidious' power against himself,
Mhm.
and that and Luke does too. Luke and Anakin do too at the end there, but I don't think that's what Kira's plan is. Kira's trying to take the ascendant power and the underworld power and launch it at the Sith, and we can have a good guess as to how well that'll go.
Mhm.
But again, it'll be terrible. It'll be sad. I mean, they have this challenge ahead of them, is to say, this is likely what's going to happen. Here's how to still make it impactful and make us feel it. And I trust Charles Soule to do that. I trust Stephen Cummings and all the other artists to be able to do that. Or whoever's, I forget who's doing. I don't know who's doing the art for Hidden Empire, but
No, we don't.
I mean, if you're working with Charles Soule, then you're going to be infused with something special. So the artistic secret sauce. So yeah, I mean, she might find a way out. She might find a way to transform. Probably not the way Afra transformed. But,
Let's talk about that. I was actually going to mention that. What do you think
Yeah.
about like how far flung Dr. Aphra is at this point? I mean, we've always known that character story is always a bit wacky and wonky.
Yeah.
But now to be basically resuscitated as a possessed demon that has the power of the Sith or something like that, no, Ben, it's kind of going
I
crazy
haven't-
right now.
Yeah, I haven't looked into Dr. Aphra as of late, so that's news to me. That's very interesting.
Chelly, I'm telling you, it's Chelly. So here's the thing: is it early in this run, or maybe it was towards the end of the Kieran Gillen Dr. Aphra run? She was getting into I think kind of boring underworld stuff. I don't know. She was getting, and part of the, not boring, but the rebellion and whatever, and I'm like, get her back into the weird. Let's go back to these this horde of force spores or whatever you call it. Let's go into the Ordo Aspectu or whatever, or the Ascendant. And I'm so glad that she's taken back to what makes the Dr. Aphra story so special, so unique, so beloved. Maybe a bit of a metaphor somewhat to her self-professed disaster lesbian kind of thing going on, with all the relationships that she ends up ruining and people that she ends up hurting, but also because she's so out there and so ridiculous. I love it. So I'm okay with it. I mean, what I'm glad about is they did it. It was the last panel in issue number 20.
Yep.
Issue 21, they pick it up immediately, and hopefully, and this isn't the end of the run. They're gonna look at the implications of this, especially at that last panel or the last few pages of issue 21, where Sana is going around collecting all these people that Aphra has not discarded, but I mean, trying to protect from herself, like her father, like Magna Tolvan, I mean, probably like Santa herself. So I'm here for it. Crash Wong, give me some more.
Yeah, really. I got a kick out of seeing Tolvin because I've realized
Yeah.
how long it's been since we've seen her, and we've seen her like appear on the Yavin base was like the first time we've seen her in
Yeah.
the first volume, and she's
Mhm.
been through it all, and it's like, oh yeah, and the character of that little girl with that big creature that I don't even remember the name of.
Right.
So it's like it's kind of cool. It's like they're assembling a team of all these really cool, powerful Star Wars women to go get her back. I like the idea of that and where it's going, at least.
I mean, I would be happy to see a redemption arc of sorts. I know that can get overused, but I mean, I think Afra was starting. I feel like she was starting to, like Han, starting to get a bit of a heart, or maybe she already had a heart and too much of a heart, and that was her problem. But I wonder if, especially Sana, is going to be her salvation, and if she's maybe not so much with the Rebel Alliance, but not out for her own skin as much. I hope, and maybe going through this experience of being possessed by this ascendant demon thing, the Spark Eternal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm hoping for that. We'll see. Yeah, I mean, she'll always be a little bit of a wrinkle morally, but it maybe not so much a disaster.
I'm just waiting for the damn droids to show up. Like, where the heck are they? I remember last we seen them, they were in an escape pod or something. They were just flying out into space.
I guess so.
Like around the Battle of Hoth, like right before that, they got to the Echo base and they're like, "Oh, see ya."
Yeah, I mean, another thing that they probably wanted to do is things that were tired or overused. So,
Mhm.
like Afro being a disaster is going to get overdone, and that's why I want it to be pulled back in a little bit. We see a shade of that, even the flashback to when Afra and Santa first meet Ko, and the way they help Ko navigate this very transphobic university system. So it's there. Yeah, with the droids, I mean, they're starting. It was starting to get a bit of grating, I'll admit, and so I'm glad they stepped away from that. There could be room, now for even a real antagonist, if Afra is a bit more redeemed, to overcome her own past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one last comic I want to touch on here. Something that really surprised me was the Han Solo and Chewbacca issue number 3. So first off, do you think that's actually his father?
I have no idea. I mean, maybe. There it is kind of this weird thing where, I mean, they have the reference to the YT-1300.
Yeah.
Maybe IBL helped build it or something. It felt a little vague. Who knows? I mean, that's the thing with Han, with Underworld Stories, is what are people's angles? And in this time period, right? When he's working, he's connected to Jabba, and he's connected to, I mean, he's working with Greedo, sort of. If Greedo's working with him, who knows? But yeah, it's a good question. It's possible. It could be that he's his father, but still has his own angle, or maybe he's legit. Again, they've done a good job of keeping it an open question that I can't answer you right now. I've danced around the question. Yeah, I think what I will say is what Mark Guggenheim, David Messina have done. Yeah, it is given us a good job of making us feel like he is, making us feel like there is this genuine care for his estranged son, partnering him and being competent in the operation as well. And then Han actually still wanting him around at the end there. And so, I mean, we'll see. I mean, here's the question. Is he still alive now? I mean, he gets shot in the back by Chrysanthemum. Surprise, spoiler, right? At the end of the issue.
But that was a stun bolt, though, right?
It was a stumble. Okay. I hope so. I don't know.
That would be a quick end to it, right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. That would make sense story-wise.
But before we get to that point with Black Chrysanthemum, which I was very happy to see, I was like amazed to see Kira in this story. Like, wait, what? Like Han. I love how like interwove the events of Crimson Reign issue number 3 that you just were referencing a couple minutes ago. And Han was the reason why the stormtroopers came there and started looking into all her stuff and finding the Jedi stuff that she shouldn't have had, and then try to arrest her. And then you get to see through the macro binoculars, like he's like, oh, who's getting her out of this? And we know as a reader that I've read those issues, like, oh crap, that's Kira. But since he can't see her face, like he sees her from a distance, he doesn't know it's exactly her. I was like, wow, okay, so I wonder if that's like going to be the only like little connection, if Han will actually meet Kira at some point, or what's gonna happen. That could be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of I found that moment actually kind of underwhelming, only because it was teased as this big tie-in, and it really felt like just a little flicker of a moment, and that's all you really need. Fair enough. I mean, marketing is marketing, in the publisher summary on previewsworld.com as well. But you know. It just said, "Oh yeah," and Kira and
oh really?
Yeah, I mean, and she's on the archivist is on the. Yeah, it kind of spoils it. But I mean, with the archivist ridiculous. There, I kind of put 2 and 2 together. Yeah, and with the archivist, I wanted her to have a bigger role because again, I love what she represents as a her profession and her insights and everything she brings. I'm hoping against hope that we see them again, but I don't know if we will. And we don't necessarily need to for the story. I mean, I guess she has the urn, possibly.
Wait,
I can't remember, but I don't. I mean, I read it once yesterday, so I'll have to look back and check. But or maybe she doesn't. But either way, yeah. And even if she doesn't, especially, then we don't really need to see them again. But it would be an interesting emotional moment. I'll give you that. For Han to see Kira. Is there room in this it's a 5-issue run, right? So I don't know if there's room.
No, it's ongoing.
Oh, it's ongoing. Okay, so maybe there's room. Yeah. I don't know. All this information is the excuse I make. I've got lots of information crammed in my head. Sometimes I forget. So yeah, maybe there's room. Hopefully, yeah, it'll be interesting to see that emotional connection. I mean, the one we really needed was the Kira and Leia that we got in the Star Wars ongoing.
Yeah.
Comic. So, yeah. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, maybe that's setting it up. I don't know.
Yeah, looking ahead though, like I'm going off just memory right now. We got some good releases coming out with Star Wars comics. I mean, I think it's this month we're getting The Mandalorian issue 1, right? I think. Now these things are always in flux. Yeah, there are. These comics have been getting delayed like crazy. I guess there's like a paper shortage or something. I think that's what the issue is. But we have that coming out. We have Dark Horse coming out next month. I can say that it's next month now. We're in July. It's coming out at some point in August. They're gonna have the new hyperspace stories, which look really cool, by the way. Like the cover art looks awesome. And then getting into September, I think there's Visions coming out. They're gonna be doing a really cool stylistic version of Visions. And then October is when they blow the doors off everything, because that's when Hidden Empire is gonna come out. That's when all the High Republic is gonna start ramping up. I think there's like 3 different comics. So right now there's been like weeks where we haven't had any or like one comic, but like come October we're gonna be inundated with so much Star Wars comics. It'll be like 3 to 4 a week at that point. So we'll have a lot to talk about, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'm gonna need some guests on the tractor beam and try to figure out how to do that. But yeah. We're going from relative calm to a feast, like you said, especially with High Republic. I mean, I'm all about that. So the Blade of Burdock. Give it to me. Come on.
Yeah, Ben, I know you've been kind of taking over the conversation at this segment, but let me throw this fun one to you. If I know you're not super into the comics, not that you choose to, but it's just there's a lot to keep track of. If there was one storyline or one character or an event that you could get in comic book form that would make you run out to the comic stores and buy this thing on a weekly basis,
oh man,
what would it be to get you out there to buy a comic?
I would say to get me to buy one, like, I have plenty of like you said, it's not even I don't even really like them. It's just there's so many. I feel like it's just like, like you guys said, there's so many releasing. It seems like every week, comics, books, etc. And it's like, holy smokes, there's so many different things. But for me, specifically, like other than like consuming your guys' content just to get like the general overview of the story, just to keep up with things. I still do that just to be in the know. But for me, I think honestly, which I don't see it happening just because I feel like they're saving it for shows or movies, but I really think it would be cool to get a comic run be like post episode 9, like the aftermath of the events of episode 9, like whether it be with not even like the main characters like Rey, Finn, Poe, like just whatever characters, like showing what's going on at the time of the galaxy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, just to me to like push the story more forward versus like continue to play between like 4 and 5, 5 and 6, 6 and 7, and 1 and 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like that's where I would say would probably be the most intriguing for me, either that or potentially like looking into some of the different other like things like I've fairly kept up, not like reading, just keeping up with like content creators, like breakdowns of like the Crimson Reign comics and all that stuff, just because that intrigued me, just because Kira's an interesting character because of like the implications of potentially transitioning to live action, like, or even animated shows. Like that's where I come from. I'd say with an angle, I would say my angle when it comes to a lot of the comics, books, etc., is like more of where can we get transitions of characters, pulling them out from these stories into the shows, because like my critique for a lot of Star Wars is like book and comic content is like early on in the Disney era, I would say up until about Rogue One specifically. Like, I mean, sure, obviously it's been a long time since Rogue One, but it felt like a lot of the books and comics and things, like there was no payoff, like there was no tie-ins, no nothing, and it just was like, well, here's the books and comics over here, guys. Enjoy them if you want, and then here's the movies and shows over here. And it was just like, okay, so like what's the payoff? So like I feel like when you get a comic run like the Crimson Reign stuff with Kira, like I like that because there's always a potential, especially when last year you have Emilia Clarke talking about how she'd play Kira again at some point, maybe, like things like that. There's potential of those comics getting value. Like for me, one of the most enjoyable reads and well, I guess listens, I guess you would say, for audiobooks, for me, I loved the Bloodline book and then Catalyst, because it felt like they tied into episode 7 and Rogue One a lot. Like it made the movie more valuable to me, and I feel like that's what I look for when it comes to consuming content, is if it will tie in, even if it's a piece of content, for example, that's between 4 and 5, 5 and 6, whatever, like as long as it's feeling like it's tying into the movies or shows, I'm cool with it. But sometimes if it's like, is there actually going to be a payoff or connection? It'll be like, I'll read something else.
Man, I have a question for you. Have you read Brotherhood by Mike Chen yet?
No, I've not gone around to that yet. I think I might end up getting the audiobook if there's an audiobook out for that.
There is.
But there isn't?
There is.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. There's for everyone, yeah.
Okay, then I'll probably end up getting that, because I've heard great things about that book.
Yeah. And the reason I bring that one up is they could have easily marketed that as Road to Obi-Wan Kenobi. It really, it's set at a different time, but it really, that's the thing is you may not get so much a linear one-to-one, okay, here's the moment the book ends, then the movie starts or whatever. Yeah. But it explores the same types of connections between Obi-Wan and Anakin, between Anakin and his bionic body, like his severed hand, for example. So, I obviously won't go into too much, but that's a great example. I do get your point. I was thinking about this, is now in 2022, what is the relationship between what I call paper canon and screen canon? And I feel it's even less tied in, less connected. Really? Only because in the sense of the film creators, not, well, maybe I should backtrack here. In 2014, we were actually kind of sold this this marketing ploy, if you will, of the comics and the novels and the films and the shows are all going to be one together.
Yep.
And then clearly, even, you know, the Bad Batch intro with Canon, for example, I bring that one up. That goes, you know, in some details, not so much in the spirit of it, goes against what happens in the Canon comic, you know. Here's a bit of a spoiler that we know in Shadow of the Sith. There's, you know, Luke sees Force Ghost Anakin, or this is in one of the excerpts, and then in the Celebration panel, Adam Christopher told us they're actually going to have a conversation. We're going to see a live action version of that sometime down the line. That's probably going to retcon. So, and at first it pained my heart to say that. Like, you know, like a few months ago, I was like, no, it's all connected, all together. What I think is you're more likely to see are these emotional connections, right? So you're going to see, for example, the end of the last Darth Vader comic went into these questions of, is there still good in Anakin, or is Anakin still in Vader? Is there still good in Vader? And it did it through Sabe and through memories and visions of Padme, similar to what we saw on screen in episode 5 and 6 of Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Is there good in him, or is he more machine now than man? And you know, so you're going to get those connections. You know, I hope, I mentioned Sabe. I hope there's more to do with Sabe. You know, it's my dark horse thing is that she's going to show up in Endor. I don't think it's going to happen, but like, yeah, I mean that would be the perfect candidate for someone to really make a radical jump, because she's connected to Bail Organa and all that. So, yeah, but you know, it's so maybe that's what I say is look for those kinds of emotional connections as well, because yeah, maybe going back there are more linear connections, but yeah, like you have something like Rebecca Roanhorse's, it's back here somewhere. Yeah, I forget what it's called. Resistance Reborn.
Resistance Reborn.
And then that has nothing to do with Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, you know, I mean, so
it was
to
such
answer
a
your
good
question
book.
on that note, what I'd like to see in a post Rise of Skywalker comic, I want to see Snap Wexley's death retcon. Because I mean, that's the big moment for me, that where the wedge between paper and screen happened is Snap Wexley Antilles dies just as Wedge Antilles comes onto the screen. Woohoo! Oh, my son is dead. You know, we don't get that moment because on screen it doesn't matter. You know, so yeah, it's tough. All that to say, yeah, Ben, I get what you're saying is, yeah, I mean, I hope there are those kinds of connections. I hope those kinds of lead-ins. I would love to see Kira come on screen. I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon, especially since she's used in paper so much, but I could be wrong, and I'd be happy to be wrong.
Oh yeah, I totally get that. Like, my thing with it is sometimes I feel like with the whole canon that started in 2014, like my issue with it was, I mean, we've talked about it before on this podcast, like I wish they would be a little more flexible, like say with the video games, for example. Like, it's awesome, like that Fallen Order is like canon, and you know, it sets up in the timeline perfectly. But my thing is, I wish they would, you know, you could make a video game, but make that exact same video game, leave it exactly the same way, but like put more of an emphasis on it being like kind of flexible canon for the video games, because then to me, you bootstrap your video game creators, because then they can't go say as crazy as like say the Force Unleashed did back in the day, like things like that, or like even the like the old Obi-Wan Kenobi game from Xbox back in the day. Like, you know, that's Obi-Wan's whole prequel story, basically. It's like, you know, you have things like that, but I feel like a lot of those projects wouldn't get made today just because it's like, you know, we have to really hard bootstrap the canon, even though when we've had instances of canon being kind of like pushed to the maximum possible limits, like with the Bad Batch and like, you know, like you mentioned with that Resistance comic, etc. Like, you know, canon has been pushed to, I feel like, or stretched to like really far limits. Like, I mean, look how nervous everyone got when the Grand Inquisitor got killed in Kenobi. We're like, hold up, right. Whoa. Like, I understand flexible canon, but you're killing the Grand Inquisitor. And luckily, I was getting really nervous he wasn't going to come back for a second there, just because it's like, man, like, there was no repercussions for that character getting killed, and luckily he came back. Because if we would have went through there without him dying, or with him dying, that would have been like, whoa, they're even going, off canon on screen now. Like, so I'm glad they brought him back. But yeah, the canon thing's just an interesting discussion, I feel like. And for me, at the end of the day as well, like I like the stories, that have implications, say, for the live action stuff. Like I said, Catalyst, Bloodline, even like you mentioned, the Brotherhood book intrigues me just because it like connects into the characters more, etc. Like that type of stuff's great. And like even my thing is, it comes down just the stories and what they're about at the end of the day. Like back in the day, for example, the old EU, like all that stuff. Of course, like you can't like they made the stories as roughly coherent as they could because there were just so many stories. But even at that, it wasn't technically canon. So like that, and I feel like that's where they had, they were able to come up with so many interesting stories because it wasn't like ironclad canon, and it was just good content. And like to me, if it's a good story at the end of the day, like I don't care if it's canon or not canon or middle canon or whatever. Like as long as it's a good story, that's all I care about, really. Like that's the big thing for me.
Yeah, for me, it's just I want to keep them kind of stricter on the canon because for me, I love the idea that there's a universe that everything counts. Because everything else with Marvel, DC, whatever else, there's nothing else like this. So it's good for them to be original and unique. And yeah, it sucks that sometimes the creators it feels like they are kind of like handcuffed with their ideas, but that's what's good about Star Wars now is they really are expanding. So the creators that really want to create something new are giving eras that they can kind of play around in. Because at this point, a lot of us are sort of tired of the normal original trilogy stuff. So it's like, oh, go make something like 200 years before. Brand new characters, you could do whatever, and you can feel like freer in your creation. Like Taika Waititi's been talking lately. He's probably not going to have the movie ready by the end of 2023 from the sounds of it. But at least he's saying, like, I get to deal with new characters and new places and all that sort of thing. So that's cool. Like, Star Wars is greater than an 75-year period of time. There's so much more you could do and not feel like you're beholden to this era where everything is so interconnected that you feel like you're trapped too,
Yeah, I mean, I think by and large two things. The story group especially is good at keeping paper stories away from things that might be too impacted by screen, like kind of keeping the distance kind of relatively safe, like a cushion, so that screen won't have anything to do with what's going on paper and won't retcon. What I'm getting at here is the danger isn't there. Of course, we can have stories on paper that tie in and connect and add to it. And this is my second point is I think by and large, I use that term by and large, what these stories do, this paper stories do is our character studies are almost, not fan fiction because it's definitely published professional authors in a very rigorous editorial thing, and it's officially licensed and they're selling it as Star Wars and as part of a coherent paper story. I mean, the paper canon is all coherent. I mean, they do a great job of holding things almost entirely together. But it's, here's the thing with Shadow of the Sith. Okay, well, there's this one line in Rise of Skywalker, Luke and Lando went on this adventure. Okay, what happens in those characters? What is it like for Luke and Lando to go on this Jedi relic hunting, Sith relic hunting, whatever adventure? What does it do to their relationship? Here, Adam Christopher go explore that with characters. Will we see that on screen sometime later? I don't know, probably not. But for right now, here, go nuts and use your creativity to do that. You mentioned my favorite thing before Kenobi 5 and 6 came out. My favorite thing in all of Star Wars right now is High Republic. It's this one thing where they can all of us who love this interconnectivity. They literally sat in a room and said, here's how this story is going to go, and here's how we're all going to write these stories. And I have a question on Slack, a question for you, Claudia Gray, that I'm going to ask on Slack. Does this work for my character, and all these things? And they all came together and agreed, and it came out more than the sum of its parts. And that's another strength we see of the connectivity, of the richness of this tapestry. Whether or not here's maybe the point about the transition there to live action. We know Charles Soule is probably involved in the Acolyte somehow. There's that animated kids show coming out, High Republic. I think those are anything that's set in High Republic is probably gonna count, or is probably gonna connect even more tightly. At least, I mean, at the very least, Charles Soule, I mentioned, his creator juice, right? The guy, you want to talk about an master of payoff and setup and payoff. He does it so well, and immersive storytelling. He does it so well. So, I trust Story Group. I trust these creatives. You want to talk about Taika Waititi? Yeah, he's going back so far, probably, that before anything happened, and that'll be great too. It'll be go nuts. And then you got something like Visions, where don't even try and fit it in. It doesn't matter. You can go nuts there too.
But speaking of stories and dancing around certain plot points, we gotta talk about this, because this book right here, man. I gotta pull up my camera to make sure my book actually shows in the frame. Okay, there we go. That's better. This book right here is something special, man. I know you're only a couple chapters in. Yeah, look at how fat this book is, man.
It's a little hard to hold sometimes.
Pages. But let me tell you, it doesn't feel like anything is wasted so far in this book. I am enjoying the hell out of it. Essentially what it is it's in between Force Awakens and Return of the Jedi. It's an adventure between Luke and between Lando, which is an interesting pairing, because as we've seen in the panel at Star Wars Celebration, it's like, wait a minute, like Luke and Lando don't even really have screen time together that much, and they don't really say more than a few words, if any. So it's like, okay, like how's this gonna go? And I think that's what's so great about the writer Adam Christopher, is he manages to really flesh out the character of Luke in a post-Return of the Jedi world, which a lot of creators have not had the opportunity to do yet, especially at this era where it's like 17 years after Return of the Jedi. So we're in that like midway point, essentially, between both trilogies here. We see a Luke with a Jedi Academy, Ben and his Padawan, like all this stuff that I've wanted to see and wanted to learn about. But they've just, Lucasfilm has just been so guarding with like that storyline. But it's so nice to see, like, they're opening the floodgates now, and it's like, okay, you could tell stories in this time period. You can go on and tell stories about Lor San Tekka. You can go on and tell stories about this and that thing. So it's a lot of cool stuff that's happening there. It reminds me a lot of Resistance Reborn, in that there's a lot of really good connective tissue between all of the current or the previous released canon. Everything from Greg Pak's Darth Vader to even something like Dark Legends, having something that's canonized, which is really effing cool, because that's a really neat book. I'm like, oh wow. And they even make a specific reference to, like, they're like, and Lucas saying something like, oh, even like not all legends are false. Like some legends become reality. Like he literally says that in the book, based off one of the things in Dark Legends. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. But like the book, it actually is giving me like a little bit of Jedi Outcast / Shadows of the Empire vibes, with like certain sequences and certain things that happen in the book, certain characters that remind me of other characters, where I'm like, oh, I can see this, or like certain things that go back to Legends, where it's like, oh, they ripped that right out of the Shatterpoint book with Mace Windu, or something like this. I'm like, damn, this is really cool. And something with Ochia Bestoon getting such great character depth. Like, holy crap, like this character you see for like a second literally on screen is given all this breadth of storytelling. Of course, like Greg Pak has developed him more than anybody else at this point. But what Adam Christopher manages to do is respect the current continuity and managed to bring it all together. I think his storytelling is really good because it's like you have Lando starting off here, you have Luke starting off here, you have this acolyte of the Beyond starting over here, you have Rey, you have Miramir, you have Dathan starting over here, and then just like the way he manages to converge these storylines in a very fast manner. Because I feel like in some recent Star Wars books, or I won't even say recent, just some books in general, it's like they wait till like the 2/3 of the book to bring everybody together. No, things are coming forward in the first third of the book pretty quickly, where it's like I'm halfway through the book right now, and I'm just like racking my brain, like we've been through so much already. What is left in store for the adventure to come? Because there's been so much momentum already. So I feel like this book is just it's on the par with the Obi-Wan and Kenobi book, that Brotherhood book. Like I feel like Del Rey is really just like really on a good streak right now. I'm really looking forward to the Princess and the Scoundrel, because I think that's gonna have a lot of really great information about like the beginnings of the First Order maybe and stuff like that with the remnants of the Empire. But I'll let me know how you're feeling about the book, Matthew. How you feeling about Shadow of the Sith?
Yeah, it's early. I mean, I was able to read the comics, so I had to delay diving into Shadow of the Sith. But I mean, to your point there, one of the things that really came out in that panel at Celebration and in the event last night is, yes, we've got all this connectivity and it's wonderful. It's really well woven in. It's primarily a Luke and Lando story, and I think the reason maybe Lucasfilm waited to give the keys to the Luke car, so to speak, is because people want to bring in all these cool references and whatnot. Adam Christopher seems to really have his head on his shoulders in terms of what does this mean for Luke at this point in the story? What does it mean for Luke's turn to being this curmudgeon old whatever on Ahch-To? What does it mean for Luke to encounter his father, the Force ghost of his father, and study the Jedi, and everything that's going to be happening with Ben and everything going on. So, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna love all these connections. The ones I spot at least. I just finished into the chapter with Ochi on that planet where he first encounters the acolytes of the Beyond and gets his mission from a certain voice from behind his head. I won't say anymore, but I don't want to spoil anything. But those connections. I mean, you want to talk about a tie-in to Rise of Skywalker, but also, maybe think about Raka, for example, and again, everything with the Greg Pak comic. What does that mean for Ochi's character? Maybe this is what it is we want both, and we want both tie-ins, and we want the fun Easter eggs, and we need rich character stories. Lucasfilm is really finally figured out how to have our cake and eat it too, and give us our cake and have us eat it too. Whatever the metaphor I'm using here is, because, like you said, I mean, I do want an interconnected universe. I do want this to be one coherent story, one coherent history, where events from other stories have meaningful impact the way real world history would, right? I do want that. It's the genre of a novel, especially, really is character driven. And so, I mean, that's the thing. Maybe some of the criticisms, for example, of Light of the Jedi, for example, to bring one to mind, is it was more of a large scale event that was in novel form. Here are more smaller scale events that are novel form that work better. In that, I mean, I love Light of the Jedi. I love everything High Republic, but I can see that criticism. And you talk about bringing everything together. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. It already starts to feel like things are coming together. I think the part with Rey's family and I mean, again, I won't spoil too much, but that is I'm starting to see how that connects not only with Ochi. I mean, we know what happens ultimately with Ochi and Rey's family, unfortunately, but also, I mean, with Luke and Lando, I can see, and Lore, I can see some things working together there. One thing I'll say about Rey's family, even early on, the first few chapters, is, man, we know what happens. We've seen it on screen. The literal dagger to the heart.
Mhm.
right?
Oh, that
It's not
dagger,
going to
man.
end well. Yeah, it's not going to end well for Nathan and Miramir. But yeah, I mean, my friend Din came on the show talk about Kenobi episode 5 a few weeks ago, and he talked about how art makes us feel, and that's really where it hits home, and where what Adam Christopher is doing such a great job with Nathan and Miramir is we want them to make it. We believe in them. We hope for them, and we forget. Oh,
Yeah.
this isn't going to work. They're going to make it. It's going to,
Oh.
and so I think he mentioned, when or if when we go back to watch Rise of Skywalker, here's the way these stories work and these novels work is when we go back to watch Rise of Skywalker, we're going to see that scene and it's going to
Yep.
feel so much more.
I,
That's
I,
how these things work, and
I-
and
yeah.
that's the real bonus of it. So go ahead.
I just can't wait to watch Rise of Skywalker. I don't know if I would have ever thought of myself saying that again, but I'm like, I can't wait to
Yeah.
watch this freaking movie because this book is doing the groundwork for making me care exactly like a Nathan and Miriam. Like they're on this adventure, they're being tailed by Ochi and his goons, and they're getting these like really close calls and escaping. And in the back of my head, I'm sold. Like I forget sometimes that they're gonna die, and I'm like, yeah, they're getting away.
Right. Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And Joel Davis is yelling in the chat, Sith Eternal, dude, they are called the Sith Eternal. The guys
Sith
debated
Eternal,
faces. But this is the stuff I love. Like
Sorry,
when it
did I
came
say it wrong?
to you said the Acolytes of the Beyond.
Oh, well, because Kai's okay. Fair enough. Sorry,
But
Joel.
Kai's is
an acolyte. The other guys are Sith Eternal. Fair enough. Yeah. sorry.
Okay, so going back to the Aftermath novels, and I would highly recommend you read those before you read this book, because Kai's story, her origins, is basically told in that, and she is an antagonist in this book, and she's on the cover, so that's not really a spoiler. But what I will say is, reading those Aftermath chapters about the Acolytes of Beyond, that was one of the most like interesting things for me in the Star Wars lore, was learning about this like dark occult type organization that is going around and just like rummaging and gathering all these dark relics of the dark side. And we're not really sure what they're doing with them, but that was always so fascinating, like this mysterious element of these people going after and like really being obsessed after Palpatine's death with just gathering these different things. So to see a story like this one, and man, I want to talk so much about this book, but I'll spoil too much of it. But there are just like all those things I loved about the Aftermath, all those things I love about the little tidbits from the novelizations of some of the sequel trilogy books where they're making reference to some dark and mysterious things, like Exegol especially. Like this is the kind of book that I feel is like written for me, because I love all that cool stuff, and they are answering so many questions that I've had over like the last like 5 or 6 years in this book, and I'm only like halfway through. But everything from Exegol to the Sith Eternal cults and what's going on with Palpatine, essentially, it's just so creepy, and you feel sorry for some of these characters because you're just like, oh, that must be horrible. Like the way he's writing these characters and what's happening to him is so good.
The way Ochi treats Dio, like,
oh my gosh,
come on.
I forgot that. I keep having these moments in the book where I'm like, oh, they met that character. Did you get to the? Oh, by the way, did you get to the character where they meet? They go to Uturba, the planet Uturba. Did you get there yet?
I think so. I'm very early. I'm like chapter 4 or 5.
Okay, so you didn't get to the archaeology site yet.
No, not yet.
Okay,
there's
another character that pops up from Rise of Skywalker. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I should have seen this coming, but I didn't. I was just like, it's like moments like that with Dio. I was like, I should have known Dio would have been in a book, and they explain his origin, and they explain like how badly traumatized this little droid is. Like, you feel so sorry for the droid, but now you have so much context of the crap that droid had to deal with.
I just want to make 2 points. First of all, but we were saying about Kaiza, that is another great example of a canon connection that fits so perfectly, because you mentioned the Acolytes of the Beyond in the Aftermath era, they're going around collecting Sith artifacts, and the bit about the mask that has the this force infused mask,
Oh,
Moment-esque,
yes.
and everything to do with the Sith and masks. They have a thing that fits perfectly with Luke and Lando going around searching for Jedi artifacts, and that part of the journey and that adventure for the Jedi history. So yeah, I mean, I can see that competition converging and emerging very naturally. Another thing I want to say, and this is a shout out to Joel. We talk about Shadow of the Sith being the Rise of Skywalker rehabilitation project. I think Chris, I was on with you
I love that title so much.
This is what after our reaction to the Celebration panel. Here's the thing, and I'm gonna read Joel's mind a little bit here. I think what he'd say is it's not. And this is on Twitter. Also, if you follow Eye On Canon pod, just letting you know. I'm plugging all over the place. It's not that for a lot of folks. The Rise of Skywalker has these holes and these concerns and these things about flow and what makes sense. For some folks, this is already there. Here's a novel that actually helps us see it, much the same way that the Darth Plagueis novel with Phantom Menace and the whole prequel trilogy, and Clone Wars with the whole prequel trilogy as well, the Clone Wars series. So I mean, it's going to reframe. It's going to help us put us in a better emotional space to watch this film that we weren't necessarily in the best emotional space, I think, because I personally loved The Last Jedi so dang much that to see some things kind of get fudged or turned a corner on or straight up reversed, it was disappointing to me. But it's we're so many years removed from that, and it is also the perfect time now then to go and explore and again set us into art, making us feel this film better. So I mean, I want to recommend this novel. I mean, I'm only 4 chapters and 5 chapters, and everything I've heard, recommend this novel to people who, like me, were kind of iffy on the Rise of Skywalker. I didn't mind it, but I'm expecting to love it a lot more now.
Yeah, I don't want to go as far as to say, oh, this book is essential for every Star Wars fan, because that just feels terrible. Like, oh, I have to read a book to understand a movie better, But from a certain point of view, it's like if you are interested in the Rise of Skywalker, I can't recommend this one enough. And again, this book could really suck at the end. I hope it doesn't. I'm only halfway through, so you'll know my final say on it in a couple days.
Yeah.
But where I am right now, my initial impressions are, wow, man, this thing is really good so far. So there you go.
Yeah, the people who've had advanced review copies, they've all loved it. So here's hoping. I mean, hoping they're not just saying that, not to spoil things, but here's hoping.
Oh, man. So how about we get into the little Star Wars trivia, shall we?
Sounds good.
All right. So last we
do I need a
left
notepad,
off,
or am I good? Or...
This one, I kind of feel weird about this one because it's very easy, and we're gonna get every one of these right. But like, I feel like we should just keep going with it because it's nice to go and, if we're gonna become New Republic citizens and all with doing this diplomatic corps entrance exam.
Oh, that's what this is.
Did you see this?
Okay. I think I've maybe seen something about
that. It's from 1997, man.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure I've seen it eventually. I'm sure I've seen it around sometime.
So we've gone through, me, Milton, and Ben, or I should say Milton and Ben, because I'm not participating since I have the answer key here. We've gone through 60 questions worth of events that happened both in Star Wars Legends and in canon. Or the movies, I should just say, because canon didn't really exist back then. So next in sequential order is famous quotes. And these are basically all from the movies, so, this is gonna be easy.
I don't know much about Legends, I'll admit. So, how are we doing this? How are we doing?
You just have to write down the name of the. There's no multiple choices. So you have to know the character name. You're gonna have
to grab a. I'm just gonna grab a notepad.
All right, that'll give all of our listeners and watchers a time to gather their things.
Yep.
I should have mentioned this from the top of the show, but we just kind of got right into it because there was so much.
That's okay. See if I have a pen around here somewhere. I don't even know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, This is my notebook.
Oh,
There we
cool.
Oh, nice.
There we go. All right, you ready,
This is
Ben?
specifically my Star Wars trivia notebook,
Yep.
by the way.
All right, number
Good
one.
enough.
Like I said, I would be very questionable for you guys if you guys are wrong. All right, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. That's number one. 2, wars not make one great. Number 3, strike me down with all your hatred, and your journey towards the dark side will be complete.
So bonus points for a creative way of saying the answer. Is there can we do that?
4, I felt a great disturbance in the force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror. I were suddenly silenced. Number 5, the son of Skywalker must not become a Jedi. Now this one threw me for a loop. And I'm very curious about this next one. I don't know if this is from the deleted scene or what. 6. You may have been a good smuggler, but now you're bantha fodder?
Oh,
It's Java. It's Java, I think.
it's because it's in Hati. Yeah.
Oh.
I think isn't that what he says to him in the A New Hope, or maybe not?
Oh, could
Yeah,
be.
like the special editions.
The special edition.
Thing.
Well, but
when he
remember
walks
this.
over his tail.
Well, this would have been made in '97, so I guess the special edition would have came out around then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it
Very
might be. I don't know.
All right, number 7, the force runs strong in your family. Okay, number 8, it's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
Wonder what Madeline's son would say about that.
Number 9, may the force be with us. I feel like Jyn Erso says that.
1997. 1997. Movie wouldn't have come out for 19 years.
That would be.
Oh, I know.
May the force be with us?
Oh wait, I know who
it
says
is.
that. I know who
think
says
two
it.
I
people
now.
know
say
who
it.
it is.
I think 2 say it, don't they?
There might be more than one. You're right.
Well-
There might be more than one people for each one of these answers.
But specifically that I know.
Let me look. I'll just give you
We'll-
a
we'll
hint if
take it
there's
up.
multiple answers. Let me give you a hint. I'm going to open up the answer
Yeah.
key and just see if they have that.
Should I give my answer? Should I tell you?
I mean, I feel like it's either. To me, I feel like it's either Akbar or the bearded guy in A New Hope. I can't think of his name.
Oh, Riken. Is it Riken?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe him.
I know it's Akbar. I can hear
See,
his, may the force be with us.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
Akbar is my first choice.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Number 10, the ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force. Now, that one would be a tricky one. That's more of a minor character.
Is it?
11?
Is
Wait.
it?
Number
Wait,
10
hold on.
is the main character of the whole saga.
Oh, that's definitely
Wait,
Vader, isn't it? Hold up.
Oh, wait
Yeah,
a minute. All right.
That's 100% Vader, Chris.
I read the question wrong.
Oh, I was like, wait a second.
I was
That's the
thinking,
lead
I
of
was
the
thinking,
story.
Grand Moff or Moff Madi or something for some reason.
Yeah, yeah.
That's who
I
he's
know, like
talking
the person
to.
he's talking to. That would be
Yeah.
an interesting one. Who is the person talking to? I mean, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
Okay, number 11 is try not, do not, there is no try. Okay, 12, traveling through hyperspace isn't like dusting crops, boy. 13, who's the more foolish? The fool who follows him. 14, somebody has to save our skins. 15, always in motion is the future. Okay, number 16 is hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid. Okay, number 17. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. 18. The Jedi are extinct. Their fire has gone out of the universe. And number 19. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. So here's what we'll do. I think, since those were really easy, I think we'll do another 10 questions, because I think we did a total of 30 the last 2 times. We'll go into the people section, and these are going to be hard. I'll let you know. These ones are
What was
legends.
the last question? I was correcting myself.
Oh, 19 was when I left you, but I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Well, we only did 19. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we only did 19. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I was double checking my numbers too. I was like, wait a second. But yeah, we only did 19.
Wait a minute.
Yep. So we're going to do 10 questions relating to people. These ones do have legends in here, so this will be fun. Okay, and these are multiple choice too, mind you. So just write down the letter, or we could do letter and a name. It's fine. Number 1, who located Leia in her cell on the Death Star? A. Obi-Wan Kenobi. B. 3PO. C. Han Solo. D. Luke Skywalker. E. R2-D2.
Located.
Oh, actually.
Oh,
That's
trick
a trick
question.
Was ER2?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, number
answered.
2. Why didn't Darth Vader know Leia was his daughter? A. She kept her identity secret from him. B. She didn't know. C. She was hidden from him before her birth. And it just has those three possible questions, or answers, I mean. So A, B, or C.
I'm curious, in 1997, what was the genesis of the thought? Because we don't see it until 2005. That's just a Star Wars history question.
Oh, yeah.
No, I mean, there's a right answer. I'm just wondering what.
Very interesting. Yeah, you got to think back in the mindset that prequels didn't even happen yet. Wow, that's really cool.
I mean,
Okay.
I think it's still the same answer, but...
Number 3, who befriended Leia on Endor's moon when she crash-landed her speeder bike? A. A stormtrooper. B. A Bothan. Or C. An Ewok. Pretty easy. Now this one's throwing me for a loop. Number 4, Leia got her first lightsaber. A. By making it herself. B. From her brother Luke Skywalker. C. From Vima da Bada. Or D. While she attended a Jedi Academy. Like, oh man, that's a really cool thought, because we know what happens in canon.
Joel, if you're still watching, just DM me the answer. I'm just kidding.
Man, that's a tough one.
I have to guess on that one.
Oh yes, 5. I guess this is yes or no. Does Leia remember her mother? Question mark. All right, I like this question kind of, because it has a character possible choice that I mentioned earlier in the show. 6. Leia made a political marriage with A. Prince Zizor, B. Prince Isildur, or C. Senator Garm Bel Iblis. I recognize 2 of those names. One of them looks like a name from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, Isildur.
Isildur's
Isildur's heir.
Man, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think, trying to think, because in the radio drama,
Oh yeah.
that's actually a tough one.
Right.
I don't remember. Yeah, because back then, like you said, back then it was just pretty much whatever was out was canon.
Yeah, that's true.
That's really
Shadows
tough.
would have come out already by then, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would have been done by then, yeah.
Would Shadows be out by then? Okay.
96, I think.
Yeah, it would have
came
been
out.
done by then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 7. One of Leia's childhood names was blank, and there's no multiple choice. This is why this is hard, because now it just gets into the legends categories, and you're just
Okay.
like, huh?
I'm cheating. No, I'm not going to cheat. I won't cheat, but I'm just going to see if Joel actually messaged me. No, I'm just kidding. I won't do that.
This is where we need Milton on these.
Okay,
on these.
Ben, most creative answer there wins for
Oh.
sure.
Okay, number 8. Leia engaged a children's tutor named. I don't know what that engaged in what way. Leia engaged a children's tutor named A. Ibrahim, B. Ingret, C. Engam Fas.
Wait, what was the question even? She got engaged to him?
No, she probably hired the services of
Leia
tutor her kids,
engaged
maybe.
a children's tutor named. I guess she hired somebody.
Like to hire to teach
Yeah.
Jason and Jaina and anything.
Okay.
Which is the most
Alright.
Star Wars name of the 3, is like.
Yeah.
All right, 9. Who is Leia's father? A. Anakin Solo, B. Bail Organa, C. Darth Vader, D. Emperor Palpatine, or E. Anakin Skywalker?
Ooh. There are multiple correct answers in
I
that.
know.
What are the? Can you list them again, so I get the right? Chris?
Okay, let's see. Oh, A. Anakin
Never
Solo,
mind.
B. Bail Organa, C. Darth Vader, D. Emperor Palpatine, or E. Anakin Skywalker? And last question for tonight. Who told Leia Organa that she had a brother? A. Darth Vader, B. Emperor Palpatine, C. Ben Kenobi, or D. Luke Skywalker? All right.
Qui-Gon Jinn.
All right. If you guys are all ready, we're going to run through.
All right.
All right. So we'll go from favorites quotes. We got 1, Leia Organa, 2, Yoda, 3, Emperor Palpatine, 4, Ben Kenobi, 5, Emperor Palpatine, 6, Jabba the Hutt, 7, Yoda, 8, C-3PO, 9, Admiral Akbar, 10, Darth Vader, 11, Yoda, 12, Han Solo, 13, Ben Kenobi, 14, Leia Organa, 15, Yoda, 16, Han Solo, 17, Ben Kenobi, 18, Grand Moff Tarkin, and 19, Darth Vader. How'd you guys do on those?
Perfect.
I got one wrong.
Okay.
Maybe I
Which
misheard.
one
What's
did
number
you-
7?
7. The Force runs strong in your family. What'd you put, Ben Kenobi?
Oh, yeah. You know what? No, I put Luke. You know why?
Oh, yeah.
Probably because I have the trailer to Force Awakens.
Oh wait,
Yes.
never mind. I did get that one wrong too. I put Luke as
Oh.
well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I-
But I have the trailer to Force Awakens in our head. That's why.
Doesn't Luke say that in Return of the Jedi when he's talking? Oh, I guess he says in our family to Leia.
Yeah.
Oh,
Your
okay.
family is Yoda.
Yeah.
So that's where the
Oh.
fun begins. Now we're going to go through the people, the first 10 questions of people, and go through the answer key. So 1 is E, 2 is C, 3 is C, 4 is A, 5 is yes, 6 is B, 7 is Lalila, Lelila, 8 is A, 9 is C and E, and 10 is D.
Interesting. See, 9, the correct answers are B and D. Bale is very much her father, but,
Yep.
you know.
So I missed 2 out of there, missed 1, so I got 27 out of 30 tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
I missed
Pretty good.
about 3 in that last one.
All right, let's see what my percentage is.
So do we only do 29 questions?
We did 29
Oh, wait, no,
questions.
20. Okay, so 26 out of 30.
Yeah.
So that would be
Probably have 25 out of 29.
or 26 out of
25.
29. I mean,
That's like a B
I,
plus.
I think I missed 3
Yeah.
on that one.
Or
89.6%.
ah.
Sure.
Hey, Chris, that'll help me and Milton's grade card for our admission into the galaxy.
Yep.
I got 2 X-Wings out of 3 ETA Actus.
What? That makes no sense.
2 other sprites out of 3 Actus.
Oh man. So moving on, our big news of the week is that Star Wars Celebration tickets are actually on sale already. So if you're looking to go to London in April of next year, well, you might want to get on that because tickets are already selling out. They sold out for the 4-day passes and they sold out for Saturdays. So you could still pick up a pass for Friday, Sunday, and Monday. But just so you know, I will be there in some way, somehow. I got my 4-day pass. I already got the hotel, so I'm not locked in per se because the hotel's not paid for yet, but I have every intention of going, but it's so far in advance that it's like, who knows what will happen, but I plan on being there. So just a public service announcement for anybody that is, especially in Europe. Definitely check it out if you can. I know as Americans, it's a little bit of a expense to get out there, us in North America in general. But we'll see what happens.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going. I will say, well, first of all, I'll say, yes, if anyone's looking to hang out with Chris, especially at a panel, especially at a publishing panel, he's a good guy to hang out with. I can attest.
I appreciate it, man.
Put that out there. Yeah, I mean, it probably is easier for me to go from Canada to UK, but it's Easter weekend. I spent so much money in Anaheim.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I went nuts. I spent so much on merch. So yeah, it's only 11 months. So an Easter weekend isn't the best for me. So
I know, that was the crazy thing. I was surprised that it's on Easter weekend of all weekends.
And my friend Kareem pointing out it's during Ramadan. So that also makes it hard. So yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, isn't it Excel Energy Center, whatever it's called? It's a smaller venue too, from what I understand.
Oh, is it really?
So it's probably why it sold out so fast. In part, probably sold less tickets. I'm kind of consoling myself by saying, it's going to be a smaller event. Watch there be some massive bombshell announcement.
I think it will be smaller.
This is exactly what Phase 3. So good.
Oh, yeah. Finish your thought. Yeah, Phase 3 will be revealed or something there. Or...
Yeah, that's the one thing. I hope they actually live stream that High Republic panel.
Oh wait,
probably not, but you never know.
If you look at it, doesn't like the end? Didn't somebody put out something that the Phase 2 is ending with only 2 waves? And like the second wave comes out in May.
Yeah, it's Kevin Scott's book, something Vengeance or something. I forget what it's called.
Path of Vengeance.
But yeah, and how that is the conclusion to Phase 2, and so the suspicion there is there's just going to be one wave for October, November, and then another wave January, February, whatever. Into May. So, yeah.
I think that originally, if things were going better than they are, I think if everything was on track for Taika Waititi's movie, this would have been the celebration to be like promoting his movie. Like, this is going to be the marquee event. Like, that Friday panel would have been, whatever the hell the title of his movie would be. But it doesn't even seem like they're shooting it this year. So that means it probably won't be out until 2024 at this rate. Mm-hmm. So that leaves me to wonder, like, what could be the big marquee? And the good thing is there's always series being produced. So just like this year, they didn't have a movie to produce. So they'll talk about Ahsoka because it won't be out yet. They'll talk about Mando season 4, if that's even being written yet or whatever. Mm-hmm. They'll talk about Bad Batch season 3. Basically, it'll be a repeat of this year, just like with the subsequent seasons of whatever show they already talked about with the next season. Maybe it'll be like, hey, we're coming out with Kenobi season 2, and there goes Ewan McGregor on stage to announce it. Who knows? So
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there's definitely a chance for all of that stuff. And don't forget Skeleton Crew. I mean, they might have a trailer around for that. They might. I feel like you'll probably end up getting a Ahsoka trailer at that, just because Mando's earlier in the year in February, I believe. So I feel like the Ahsoka trailer probably will come at Celebration, and maybe more of a earlier look at the Acolyte, or like at least like what's going on there. But to me, like, not to be like a Doombringer or anything, but I don't think the Taika Waititi movie is even going to be 2024. And my main reasoning why is because of Avatar. Avatar's next movie, it comes out this year and then December of 24. And I feel like Star Wars is trying to put their movies in that December, holiday month. So to me, it screams it's probably going to be 25 if I had to guess for Taika's movie. Unfortunately.
But here's the thing, though. Like, Disney controls both franchises, so they can easily shift them around. Be like, all right, we're putting this Star Wars movie here. Sorry, Avatar, you're getting pushed up to like summer or something. Like they have all
See,
the
I-
power to
We've
do
waited
that.
20 years. Come on, what's another
Yeah.
few months, right?
See, I don't know. I don't know if that'll happen, but just because, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't see him moving it, but that's just me.
But yeah,
I
well,
mean, here's the thing: is sorry, go ahead.
finish your thought.
Well, here's the thing: Star Wars is not a film franchise anymore. It is primarily a live-action Disney Plus franchise, and so to have films going forward in production, I mean, it's harder. I think it's harder to do a film. Maybe not, but it seems to be at least, or even the storytelling. They want the time, the breadth that you can put in a Disney Plus show. Yeah, I mean, going forward, it'd be nice to have films. It'd be nice to have Taika Waititi's film. It'd be nice to have, if we can get the Squadron's Rogue Squadron.
Oh, Patty
Yeah,
Jenkins.
Rogue Squadron. Yeah, the Patty Jenkins film. But I mean, like you said, we have Ahsoka. We have the Acolyte. We have Bad Batch season 3. We have Mando and everything happening there. We have probably some sort of culminating Thrawn-esque thing happening. Who knows if that's a film, if that's a made-for-Disney Plus film? Who knows? I'm satisfied with all of that, and that, I mean, that's a deeper philosophical question of what is Lucasfilm doing now. But yeah, I can see that. I mean, for them to really push Ahsoka the way they pushed Obi-Wan Kenobi in Anaheim, and even I mean, they've done with Rebels, for example. They've released an episode, have a private screening of an episode months in advance of the actual airing. Will they do that in the era of leaks and streams and whatnot? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, there already was the era of leaks and streams. We know with Kenobi, they launched the first 2 episodes on Disney Plus. The second, our premiere finished, like pretty much literally the second. Like as we were walking out, they were starting to people were starting to filter it. Oh yeah, it's on now. And also at midnight Eastern as opposed to midnight Pacific. But yeah, I mean, it depends. Where's the energy? And the energy is clearly on the streaming shows. So yeah, like your point. We can get a trailer for Ahsoka. I think people are gonna. It might be. I mean, it pains me to say I'm not going to go there, but it might make it a whole episode for them.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing I think with like the Ahsoka show. I feel like that'll be the flagship for Star Wars next year after The Mandalorian's over. Just because, to me, I think, as you brought up about Rebels, to me, I think they're really going to like lean into Ahsoka being basically like the pseudo Rebels season 5, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to really drive the marketing, drive the stuff for that. Because, who knows, the trailer might obviously will show Ahsoka, probably show shots of Sabine and obviously like hinting toward whatever storyline leading up to Ezra, and they'll really lean into those Rebels vibes, I feel like, versus
and a bit of Hera too.
Yep. Oh yeah, and Hera, of course. Yep. I think that's what they'll lean into for like the marketing for Celebration. I feel like there's a chance, you'll get potentially, especially for like, say, like to really help market it. Because I feel like it's inevitable, especially with Dave Filoni involved and how much, I mean, it's his show, but with Rebels, I feel like it's inevitable. We're probably going to get like some type of a flashback or callback or something to like the Vader Ahsoka fight. And I could see the Ahsoka trailer, like having the Vader breathing in the trailer or something, just to get everyone riled up. Like that sort of stuff, like, I feel like Ahsoka is going to lean heavily into the Rebels vibes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I like that, especially since the interaction with Grogu and Ahsoka the first time we see her live action, she's thinking about Anakin. She's thinking about Vader and Anakin's fall and why she's hesitant to train Grogu. So yeah, I mean, I like that, especially what we've gotten with Kenobi to actually to make this the point again. That this is the other, I mean, we've made this. I think a lot of us have made this point. Ahsoka got the left half, and Obi-Wan got the right half, and Luke helped me take my mask off. We made that point a lot to bring that point home live action for more viewers who haven't even seen Rebels, who probably should see Twilight the Apprentice. But yeah, I definitely I hadn't thought of that, frankly. Then thanks for pointing that out, because I mean, I think I mean her motivation is Grogu and Luke, and even probably even Ben Solo a little bit, but finding Ezra and getting whatever she wants to do to Thrawn, who knows? But yeah, I mean, the flashbacks to Vader, I like it.
Yeah, so we titled this episode the Obi-Wan Kenobi series review. So it would be remiss if we didn't spend at least a little bit of time talking about Obi-Wan. Before we jump in, though, I wanna hear your experience, Matthew, with this special Toronto event you went to. So what happened there?
So yeah, it was the whole series, all 6 episodes. We did have breaks, but the really nice theater downtown, not too far from the Skydome, from the Rogers Center, and bit like downtown Toronto, where a lot of these events do tend to happen. They have premieres, they have different things there. And we took over a theater and we sat and watched all 6 episodes in one go, and on a big screen, and I was able to get prime seating, beat the line, and did that. So for the whole day, and well, it started about 3 p.m. And we had breaks. It was fine. We got food, we got coffee, whatever. To see it all in one go on a big screen, it was really spectacular and really special to see the connections between you see the first character you see in the whole series is a young Reva, and I didn't notice that until watching this again on the big screen. The connections there. The guy who barges in front of the water line at the end was Kenobi's meatpacking boss at the beginning. Those connections, but also the moment with Padawan Anakin and Obi-Wan, the episode just before episode 2, at the beginning of episode 5, I started to tear up. I was like, oh wow, this is really special. Just the experience of seeing episode 2 era on the big screen. And so that was really fantastic. And then Deborah Chow and Hayden Christensen, who are of course both from here, Hayden Christensen still lives in the area. They did a Q&A, and they said, great to be back in our hometown, and talking about casting, Deborah Chow talking about casting for Leia, and Hayden Christensen talking about performing Vader, getting into Anakin's headspace, and then going to a really dark place. So kind of connecting to Anakin's character, but as a dark, fallen Anakin. Again, going back to the point about Deborah Chow with casting for Leia, they wanted to cast, yes, young Leia, but also young Carrie Fisher, who would react in circumstances, make the kind of choices that Carrie Fisher would make. And, of course, with Vivian Lara Blair, they knocked it out of the park. So, really special event overall. I'm really glad I did it. It was also, it didn't feel long or drawn out, which is a testament to the pacing of the series. As a whole, mixing the action sequences with the quieter moments, with the larger overarching themes, seeing it in one go really felt like a fun, engaging experience that I'm going to cherish. It was a bit of celebration magic right here in my hometown. I kind of joke, folks down in SoCal get all the exclusive events, and so it was nice to get one right here in my backyard.
Yeah, that's really neat, because me and you kicked off Celebration by watching the first 2 episodes in that theater. So that was like definitely a highlight for me for Star Wars memory of the last 5-6 years, just like being around that noise. Because in 2015, I actually did the marathon of all the Star Wars movies at the AMC over the bridge in PA. They had like 18 hours worth of Star Wars.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
This is thankfully only about 6 or 7.
Yeah, we had that here too.
And it was fun because like people were camping out. I took a nap at some point in my car. There was like a 2-hour gap at one point. I was like, oh, let me just go to my car and just sleep. So that was fun. But the communal experience of like marathoning Star Wars with a room full of people is just something special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the other part of it is, with my friends, Ding, Cream, and Dom, and a whole crowd, lots of 501st, lots of Rebel Legion, cheering for different things, different folks cheering for different reasons, and reacting to different events, and it is interesting to see what people react to, what people find funny. Because one thing, I watch all the episodes right here in this basement by myself, and it's one thing to do that, and then go. I watched the finale that morning, and then went down to the event and watched the whole series again. So, yeah, there's, I mean, that is all my points about Star Wars being Lucasfilm being Star Wars being a Disney Plus franchise, notwithstanding. There is still something special about watching a film in a theater with a larger crowd who is more than just you. And I mean, that's the thing Marvel, for example, has down to pat perfectly, is they get the best of both worlds there. So yeah, and it's nice to have the control of the noise and whatever, and get my own food and my own comfort, but also then, you know, of watching it at home, but also, yeah, to be in a crowd with a big screen. And I mean, the production quality of that show is the production quality of that show. It's enormous, and so worth, especially episodes 5 and 6, are worth being on the big screen.
Oh yeah. So let's talk about just overall our thoughts on the series now that we've had over a week to kind of let it kind of settle over us and think about the whole thing as a whole rather than just on an episode per episode basis. So let's start with the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'll throw this one to Ben. Were you satisfied? Were you joyful? Were you very happy with what they dealt with, both the portrayal of Obi-Wan by Ewan McGregor in this series and just his story overall, the writing, everything about the character of Obi-Wan? What'd you feel?
Yeah, well, for me, I mean, honestly, Chris, the more I think about it, like, the more your Facebook post from last week literally summed up my feelings on this like whole show. Like, it hit it perfectly. But for like Obi-Wan specifically, I think Ewan did a great job. Like, I think he stepped right back into the role, and I think he improved it, in my opinion. Like, I think his acting, obviously, like, his acting's gotten better over the years. You know, with more projects he's been in and refining the role more. I thought he's done a really good job in that regard. And then in terms of like Obi-Wan, or I guess Ben in this series, Ben for this series, I feel like he, I think his character, in my opinion, should have started to transition more to like the hero Obi-Wan a little bit earlier, because I feel like it was just so late in the series. Like, you know, like the 5th episode, we're basically like, you know, by the time you're in the 5th episode, it's like we're in the home stretch. So it's just like, I wish his character would have potentially started transitioning to, you know, the hero Obi-Wan, maybe like, you know, into the 3rd episode or so, like halfway through the series, basically, versus like, you know, basically back half of episode 5 into the finale. So like, it was just kind of like, I don't know. I wish his character would have started transitioning better. But with that being said, I think what they did with him worked for what they were trying to do with like the Obi-Wan, like basically down and out, like, you know, just basically everything, the direction they went with his character, I thought was done in a good way for what they were doing. But for me personally, I just wish his character would have transitioned to the hero mode a little bit earlier. But yeah, so like I would say overall, like Obi-Wan's character specifically, I think I would say if I was like saying like an out of 10 scale, we're always talking out of 10. I feel like when we're talking movies and shows, like I would say like his character overall is probably like an 8 out of 10 type arc, just because it started, you know, from a down point. Like I said, I felt like it dragged on a little bit. And then we got to, you know, obviously the ending. I feel like the ending with Vader was done really well, especially even the earlier fight. Like a lot of people criticized the earlier fight. And to me, I think it played out perfectly because it fit Obi-Wan's character, like how weak he was at the moment, etc. Like I think that was played out well. And then the finale fight was done well with the dialogue that was delivered between Obi-Wan and Anakin, or well, Vader, I guess you would say. I think the dialogue was really good. I do wish there was a little bit more dialogue, potentially like a mention of Padme to some degree. Like that was one thing I was really hoping. Like, you know, of course, us as Star Wars fans, we can nitpick, you know, till the cows come home. But to me, I wish there would have been maybe more of a callback. Like obviously Anakin and Obi-Wan, like they showed their brotherhood throughout this series, like with the flashbacks and all that stuff. But I do feel like I wish there was just a little bit more of their connection, like as brothers, like him maybe saying something about Padme during that fight, and then, you know, that's what sets Vader off or something, versus like, how it all played out. Like I just wish there was a little bit more chattiness in the finale fight. But overall, like I said, I think his character was done really well.
Yeah, I would have to kind of echo your thoughts on this one mostly, Ben. I feel like Ben Kenobi, obviously the titular character of the story, it's named after him. So I was expecting quite a bit, as I think we all fare often to do with a character's story named after them. And I really liked. I said this before. I really liked episode 1. Really liked episode 6, and I feel like there were standout moments. And I agree. Like I feel like his transition could have happened more rapidly, because I just felt like, unless there's multiple seasons to a certain degree, like I wanted more of the Obi-Wan that we know. And we've seen so much of the down and out Obi-Wan that by the time we got to episode 6 in that last 10 minutes when he's meeting with Leia, like that's like the first time I think that he like laughs the whole 6 episodes. Well, and I understand like he's going through trauma and turmoil. But it's also hard for me to get behind it, because I'm like, oh man, I really wanted to see more of this Obi-Wan, and we're only getting like 10 minutes worth of it,
Well, just to add in there really quick, Chris, I'll let you continue your point after my long dialogue. But see, that was kind of my feeling with the way it went was, like, obviously the finale is supposed to be really good, like the characters, all the action, et cetera, et cetera. But when we got to the finale, I felt like this is the Obi-Wan I was wanting for, obviously, not all 6 episodes, just because you have to get him out of being depressed or whatever. But like that's the Obi-Wan I was looking for. Like to me, like the first 4.5 episodes, it felt like kind of prequel Obi-Wan series to what I actually wanted for Obi-Wan's. Like that's how I would describe it.
That's like a perfect explanation for me. Everything with Ewan McGregor was great. His delivery of the lines, everything was great. But like I remember they're like episode 5, like he's giving the speech to the people that are on Jabim, and like I just didn't buy it. I didn't feel like that was Obi-Wan in that moment. I feel like him like trying to like rally up the people. I was like I feel like Obi-Wan would deliver this speech a lot better or something. Like it just didn't like hit it for me. And but I liked how in that same episode that he was like the master negotiator. He's speaking to Reva face to face, and he ends up like basically getting her to try to kill Vader, whether or not like she needed the extra push from Ben or not, it was a question. But like performance and everything was great, and it's hard because like all film and everything's subjective, so you got to just critique it off the written story that's before us. It's so easy, and you see it online everywhere. It's like, well, it should have been like this. Like, it should have been this story and this story. And I feel like that's kind of unfair for a certain degree if you're critiquing something, because you can't critique something that doesn't exist, essentially. You just got to look at what exists currently and look at that. And based off of that, they wrapped it all up with like his storyline pretty good. I like where he started, and I like where he ended, but just some of the middle ground territory I could have seen a little bit more from his character in general. What about you, Matt? Let's talk about Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I mean, the way you guys describe it, that was my experience maybe while we were in it, for the first maybe episodes 3 and 4 especially, when we get to the ending, and maybe this is part of my experience watching it all at once as well. We see all that journey, that exciting chase, as set up as them earning or leading to these moments on especially with Anakin and Obi-Wan, everything in episode 5, and then of course the confrontation in episode 6, all that build up. I mean, looking back on it, first of all, I'll say the real moment of transition beginning is in episode 2, where he taps into the Force and saves Leia from crashing, right? Then he has to be carried. He has to be, basically the Force has to kind of yank him along this journey, trying to help Leia escape from the Inquisitors. That then he sees Leia, and he sees how her heart and her spunk. He encounters the path and everyone working for a better tomorrow, a better future. And so then he's able to make those speeches as General Kenobi, rallying the troops and rallying the clone troops rather, and organizing and negotiating, as you mentioned. So, yeah, again, while I was in it, I felt similar to that. Like, where's this going? This isn't the Obi-Wan I wanted. I wanted them to come to episodes 5 and 6 the way we did. Looking back, I see. I am more convinced. I am more convinced that this was just the journey, the steps that needed to take there. It was more gradual. It wasn't this switch moment. It was symbolized by a switch moment of him emerging from the tomb, from the rocks that were, enclosed on him. But that is, a birth takes 9 months. It takes this time to make that simple. A resurrection takes 3 days. So I can use that image as well. So yeah, I'm good with it. Here's the thing: is Deborah Chow and the authors and the showmakers have a similar challenge to what I was saying about some of the paper stories before. Here's something we know has to happen. We know Obi-Wan has to go from this defeated, we've lost, Anakin has fallen to the dark side, the Jedi Order is gone, to you must come with me to Alderaan, learn the ways of the Force, and become a Jedi like your father. You are the next hope, the new hope. And we knew that, we could predict it. It needed to make us feel it and experience it, and ultimately I do believe it did. And so it really succeeded, and it did. And I don't want to preempt your notes too much, but it did in a surprising way. Again, we thought this would be a Luke story. We thought it would be about him transitioning from Anakin to Luke, and there's Leia on the way, and this big surprise there. And so the way she is able to ignite this new spark of life in him was incredibly profound and incredibly moving, and ultimately well earned in episodes 5 and 6.
Yeah, excellent. So let's talk about some of the other ancillary. I would even call them ancillary characters, supporting characters. First off, at Anakin / Darth Vader. I'll start with this one. I think they did a really, really good job with Vader, especially towards the later half of the season, with really getting into his mind, especially with episode 5, seeing the flashbacks, seeing how the connective tissue between him and Obi-Wan is, seeing how Vader and Obi-Wan kind of see themselves through the Force. And I think that was a really great way of deciding that, and seeing how Vader is maybe a part, and you put this earlier in the episode about like Obi-Wan kind of took an element out of Anakin, Ahsoka took an element out of Anakin, and it was up to Luke to kind of redeem him completely to a certain degree. So as far as the show becoming Obi-Wan, I think it was really cool to see Vader, and to see him, he wasn't played by Hayden Christensen all the time, but definitely in the tank, and in a scene where he's like a specter out on the plains of Jabim, or not Jabim, but the other place. And to see him in the flashback, and to see him under the mask that was shattered, there's plenty of really cool, ample opportunities for them to show us again that, oh yeah, Darth Vader used to be this like kindly teenager that just kind of drifted to the dark side. Like he's still in there, and I think that was cool to see. Like, it's always hard. Like, we read the comics and stuff, obviously, and it's like, how do you like tell a good Vader story when he doesn't have any expression? And it's just like the behind the mask. How do you see that? And I think they did a pretty good job with that. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I think overall Vader was done, I would say, pretty good, but he did have some flaws through the series. Like, I think the parts that they highlighted really well were, I think James Earl Jones's voice, he nailed it this time. I think it was much better than Rogue One. And then the different sequences with Vader, like the fight sequences, like I loved seeing, Vader really basically lay down like the terrifying Vader we'd expect, when he was walking through the town, like choking the people, all that sort of stuff. Like, that's like the Darth Vader you would expect, like in real life, like if you were living in that town, like, so that type of stuff I think was really good for his character. And then of course, like his fight with Kenobi, both times I thought were done really well. Just the way he acted, even though to me, like some of the cinematography of Vader in that first fight was a little weird, just the way it was shot.
Oh,
and
we'll
as
talk
you mentioned
about that.
Yep, as you mentioned, Chris, like, that that to me, like stuff like that is like, okay, you know, with Vader not having expressions, you got to nail the cinematography, and they didn't on some of those shots. So like, I think they did some really good things and some shaky things with Vader. Like some of my other like issues, like this gets into like nitpicking territory, but it has to be said, because like I think like in the I believe the 4th episode is where they rescue Leia from the base, right? Okay, so
yeah, from the newer.
Yep. Okay. So anyways, like my issue with Vader in that episode, like sure you have Roken say like Vader's in his ship or whatever, like, you know, then it's like the question, okay, how's Roken know? But like Vader just, even when he comes in and he's talking to Reva, like to me it's like, I said it when I was watching it at 3 a.m, because I always get up and watch them at 3. I stay up all night, watch them at 3. And then I think that adds a more critical eye to me, like when I'm half tired, you know, at 3 a.m. But like, I think like when Vader starts choking Reva, like I laughed because I was like, man, this is like Disney. Like don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those people like, oh, Disney Star Wars, but I was like, man, this is a Disney Star Wars moment. Him just like gently setting her down, like even though she gave him information she wanted, even though she gave him info he wanted. To me, I feel like Vader in that moment, being angry, he still would have just chucked her aside. Like, you know, we've seen him do that how many times with, you know, Imperials basically in the original trilogy. Like I think Milton brought it up last week or the week before, Chris, when you know, in the original trilogy for the Admiral Oslo coming out of Lightspeed too quickly, he force chokes him across Skype basically. So like, you know, you have stuff like that, and then you have him like gently setting Reva down, and it's like, okay. So like you just have some weird choices to me with Vader between like mannerisms and then like the cinematography. And then in terms of Anakin, I think all the Anakin stuff was done great. Like the flashbacks, in my opinion, was excellent. Like I can forgive the de-aging stuff. I don't care, whatever. Yeah. Like I think he looks fine. I think Hayden nailed it, and especially in the scene with the broken mask. I thought that was done really, really well. And then I think with Hayden though, my issue doesn't have to do with anything we've seen in the show. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Matthew, like I think with Hayden, I wish they would have kept the flashback stuff and Hayden a total secret until that episode, till we actually saw, you know, just imagine if we would have started that episode, boom, showing the flashback, people would have went crazy, because like my issue was, sure, you know, you have this story throughout, et cetera, like going on. But to me, they marketed the show like it was Ewan and Hayden, you know, like Hayden was going to be in it a lot, and then he was in it for like probably 8 minutes maybe. Like, so to me, it's like, I wish they would have just not included him in marketing and just used him as a surprise, because people still would have showed up to watch it, Kenobi versus Vader, like, you know. So that was my only other issue with it. But overall, I think the Vader character was done just as good as Kenobi. I would say he's right there, right on par with the Kenobi character.
Yeah, I think with the whole Hayden, that's interesting. I think the reason why they do it as well is because, well, they didn't officially acknowledge it, I don't think, still, but like he's going to be in Ahsoka according to all the reports. So I think they're just like, hey, he's going to be Obi-Wan. People already know he's going to be the Ahsoka show. Let's roll him out here to Celebration and New York Comic Con and all these other events, because we're trying to drum up that support for him because he's back, kind of thing. Not just with Obi-Wan, but with other things. You know what I mean? That's how I kind of legitimize it. But I get that.
That's definitely my headcanon for that.
Because I get that. It's like, oh, wait. Like, most of the time, that's probably not him in a suit. Like, I've seen an image of, like, there's a guy that just stands there, and there's a guy that does, like, the fight choreography that plays. There's 2 different Vader stunt doubles. Yeah, what about you, Matthew? What do you think of Anakin / Darth Vader in the series?
So, my favorite question in all of Star Wars is, what is the relationship between Anakin and Vader? Like, how does this make him the chosen one, if that's still a thing in Star Wars, which in some layer point of view it kind of is, and so the way it explored it was brilliant. I loved it so much, because you talk about the memories. I don't like to use the word flashbacks. I like to use the word memories. You know, memory is always selective, and memory is this is how I conceive of this person in the present. And so the way they tied that fight that sparring in the Coruscant Temple in with this whole cat and mouse thing going on Jabim was brilliant because Obi-Wan remembers both the lessons that he was trying to impart and Anakin's tendency to try and prove himself and one up others, and so he uses that as the strategy. Vader remembers Obi-Wan, this hard master who I got to beat and I got to defeat and I got to continue to prove myself. So I really love the way they intertwine that, and then of course in Episode 6 with the mask and everything. I'll back up. Even with Episode 5, with the thing with Reva, I get the point of you want maybe him to be a bit more brutal. Another thing he's remembering is that encounter. He remembers that encounter in the temple with Order 66 and the operation. I forget what the operation is called to ransack the temple and kill all the Jedi. He remembers that, and he's remembering that as a foundational piece to his identity, a foundational moment to his identity as a Sith. You got to do something horrendously terrible to become a Sith, and so that's part of this, and everything to do with the Inquisitorius. I really loved, even you talked about cinematography, and yeah, I get especially that one scene that we'll talk about in a bit. You talk about the way they characterize him, the way artists characterize him in the comic books, and I felt that in this series, the way his mask be framed at a certain angle and different shots and different, including the angle with Reva on the ground, right? In different scenes, in different moments, it felt very much like out of a comic book, and the way they have to use those techniques to instill fear, to instill coldness, to instill dominance, give a feeling of that. So I really love that. To me, he's up there, like you said, with Obi-Wan. And here's the thing we talk about is there going to be a season 2? To me, I don't necessarily need one, because the only thing I really needed to see was that confrontation in Episode 6. I needed to see Obi-Wan make that hinge transition between he's more machine now than man, or to that point, and we got that. And so that's at the core. And again, I was talking about that move towards Luke and Leia as the hope for the future. So I loved it. I love how it left open this question, though, with Anakin and Obi-Wan and Vader's character question that I brought up with the Greg Pak comic book a few hours ago. Obi-Wan Kenobi thinks he's gone, he's done, he has to move on, potentially. At the very least, friend Din was mentioning, he needs to let Luke make his own conclusion. For us, it leaves open this possibility that he's actually still in there, he's still alive, even to the point of wanting to absolve. And this is something Hayden brought up in the Q&A, this really interesting moment of wanting to absolve Obi-Wan of the sin of letting Anakin fall. Very much brought up the Kieran Gillen comic at the end of that comic, especially where we have that moment on Mustafar, that vision on Mustafar, of Vader killing Anakin. This is what Vader believes about himself, and that's the thing is, I keep coming back to, is we see Vader trying to forget who Anakin is, and so that's why, for example, the only memories we see are of him sparring with Obi-Wan and then him ransacking the temple. We don't have any memories of him in the Clone Wars, because that is heroic, awesome Anakin who actually took care of Ahsoka and who actually liberated towns, liberated cities, and took care of the Separatists, and loved Padme, and loved Ahsoka, and loved Rex, and loved Obi-Wan. And he's blotted that out. That I do think will come back in Ahsoka. I can't wait to read Adam Christopher's take on that as well. But yeah, I loved what they didn't show as much as what they did show.
That's a really interesting thing to say. What they didn't show versus what they did show. A lot of you leave it up to the imagination, read between the lines, and come up with your own little headcanon from here and there. The last big character I want to talk about is a new character to Star Wars, and that is Reva the Third's sister. So I'll throw this one over to Ben first.
Yeah, I really enjoyed her character a lot through the whole series. I would feel like from the beginning, I thought she was done really well overall. I thought some of the writing around her was weird, like the other Inquisitors around her. I thought had some weird lines and just some of the stuff like that. But overall, her character I thought was done really well. I mean, she had good motivations. I felt more and more like when we were going through the series, like it just felt to me, it felt like it was inevitable she was going to turn good at some point. Just because like she's not in Rebels, and it just felt like it was just inevitable. She's probably going to turn good, which she ended up doing, which it's fine. It's like, hey, I mean, I expect that with some of these new like villain anti-hero type characters. I mean, look, they basically did that with Boba Fett, and I feel like it's going to continue. So with her, I was fine with it. I liked, as you mentioned earlier, Matthew, like her being at the beginning of the show, I thought was great. And then overall, like, as I mentioned, her motivations, for like being against Vader / Anakin, I thought were really well done. Like her interactions with Vader, that was another thing I didn't even bring up in the Vader topic was like, I think her interaction with Vader was done really well. Like, props to like all the people involved with the show on like, even though we've had Reva as a pretty cool character through the series, she still didn't stand a chance to Vader in that fight. Because like, I would have had a big problem if she would have like got a slash in and hit Vader's shoulder or something like that. It would have been like, whoa, hold on here. So like, it's good they made her character, they slotted her character in like power level where she would be accordingly, like, if you rank all these characters. So like they did a good job with that. And then I think Moses Ingram's best acting in the series for sure was the finale. I thought her acting in the finale was done really, really well. And I think her character was a really well developed, really well-rounded character for the most part. And I'm glad. See, now that's another thing I can bring up as well. I'm glad they turned her though, because I'm sure you remember us talking about it, Chris. Like throughout the weeks leading up to the finale or to her potentially turning good, it's like, man, she's really like a one-note villain. Like she's just like trying to be bad. Like if she's not going to turn good, like this is just a totally one-note villain. So like it's good they ended up turning her, and like having her at the end not die, I thought was an interesting choice just because she knows about Luke. So like that's an interesting decision. And then to me, it's also interesting. Did you guys see like this week, one of the writers did like an interview and like she was confirmed, like they confirmed she was going to die like at the end there. So Nathan Beatty is his name. He was the original writer who did the script and then they reworked it. So, so it's interesting to me. I think, also leaving her alive also leaves the opportunity for the next season, like of her being a side character or something going on with her, because my thing when it comes to a Kenobi season 2, like, as you mentioned, Matthew, like they wrapped it up in a way where you could just cut the show there and be done with it. But to me, they left the door wide open as well, because, you don't like fans. I feel like a lot of fans' critiques of the show were like, oh, Obi-Wan can't leave Luke, can't leave Luke on Tatooine, can't do that. Well, they basically wrote that into the show now. Now he can leave Luke because he literally says to Uncle Owen and Beru, like, hey, you guys can protect him. Like, you're good. So, like, now they have their built-in in-universe reason. Like, so Obi-Wan can leave. Reva can do something. Like, I feel like they purposely left her alive as an opportunity for another season, for another character versus, like, so they didn't have to like come up with another new character for a Kenobi show versus like, hey, let's just bring her back. So like, I think overall though, they did a really good job with her character.
Yeah. What about you, Matthew? What do you think about Reva?
Emmy Awards, Moses Ingram, do the right thing. Come on. Absolutely stunning performance. Stunning all the way through. just from her going, yeah, like I said, like the one note, but a pretty loud screaming, I want to get this guy, I want to get this Jedi. Why are we settling for the dregs? Moving on to, that confrontation with Owen, very intimidating. You're a good man, Owen. Can you defend against me? That very menacing moment.
Mm-hmm.
Two we see in episodes 4 and 5. I think episode 5 especially, with her motivations, why she has this incredibly twisted sense of justice, but a justice derived from this childhood memory from when she was too young to really understand and really be able to work in what is actually right and who is actually wrong, and how that warped everything to the end where she has this moment of she could either become Vader, who had killed her or who killed her friends, or she could choose a new path. And we talk about redeeming the souls and saving her soul. She could have done the thing that Vader thinks he's done to Anakin, right? She could have killed herself, right? There's a reason that Luke turns into the girl, into her. Similar in a way to Luke in the cave on Dagobah, right? You could destroy your own soul or attempt to destroy your own innocence. Of course, no one's ever truly gone. No one's ever truly darkness hasn't truly ever overcome anyone, as Anakin demonstrates at the end of Return of the Jedi. But really loving all the way through to the point about season 2. Yeah, I mean, in terms of in-universe, they could. I agree. They could do it if they wanted to. I meant more in terms of the narrative, the story, what Obi-Wan as a series focused on Obi-Wan would need. I would love to see Reva again. I think she would fit great in Andor. I think she might fit great in the Mandoverse sometime. Who knows what she's gotten up to. I mean, again, Moses Ingram, I'm going to search out her other performances, because absolutely stunning. Maybe the best actor of the series as a whole.
Okay.
And I'm not just saying that because, I mean, she got a lot of the nonsense. We don't need to give any air to the nonsense, but yeah, it's so the opposite. It was absolutely convincing from moment to moment.
Yeah. So I like the character, didn't love the character. Here's the thing with her journey. I like the performance of the actor, but I feel like it was a little too late. As far as her character journey, the motivation, I wasn't completely sold on it. If I'm being honest, I really don't know what happened in the last episode. I'm still trying to piece that together. It's like she left the Empire essentially because they just left her for dead. So why does she care about Luke anymore? I was very confused about that whole thing. And then the matter was like that, like Owen and Obi-Wan would just like kind of let her walk away. Like I like the idea that she is one of those Star Wars characters that like kind of like is bad and leaves the past behind and doesn't die like Ben Solo or Darth Vader. Like she actually goes somewhere we don't know.
True.
And she's not necessarily turning good. She's just turning her back on the Empire and turning her away from this thing. So I like the fact that it's not like all of a sudden Obi-Wan's like, I'm going to train you to be a Jedi. Like, she's just going to go, and she leaves her lightsaber and just goes out and goes somewhere else. So for me, I was just like, I was a little questionable about her path of getting there and her future path. But I do like, especially that last scene, she's really breaking down the first scene of the first episode. She's all in Owen's face. So there's lots of shining moments for her. And I like the idea. I love the concept of somebody in the Empire trying to kill Darth Vader, and how futile we as the viewers know that could be. And seeing how that played out, it's like, yeah, we know how the story's going to end. And the fact that he actually does a killing blow on her was pretty interesting. I did not actually expect that to happen, because it's pretty visceral. Like, he just gets impaled by both her lightsabers. But for me, it was like, okay, cool. Like, she's got some inkling to go there, but like for me, I couldn't get past the thought. I'm like, what's the point of this kind of thing?
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Like, I think with her, I feel like there was definitely I don't know, like I said, some weird writing choices around her, like the scenes around her. Some of the scenes around her I think were weird, like just some of the way the Inquisitors were interacting, just some of her other interactions throughout the series. I felt like is maybe where it's like it's led you to like that conclusion, Chris. And then like my thing with the last episode as well is like, yeah, it's a weird ending because I think I mentioned it last week in our review last week. Like it's the whole thing of, is it like Obi-Wan and Owen feeling good in that moment right then and there? Like it's like that, oh, she did a good thing. Like, okay, like we're good now. But then like what happens a week later when Obi-Wan's sitting there and he's like, oh man, I just let this I just let her leave. Like,
yeah.
Like see that's what gets me, or it's like that whole thing of like, oh, you're having fun eating a whole pizza in one sitting, and you about an hour later you're like, oh man, I feel kind of ill right now. It's like it's just
that's what I did for dinner. Come on.
Yeah, it's just that kind of weird like story choices where it's like I don't know, it just makes things weird for the Reva character, in my opinion.
Yeah. And to kind of close things up, what I like to do is look at a movie or look at a series in its entirety, seeing what we think the mission statement is of that intellectual property, and if we believe that it succeeded in the story it was trying to set up, the story it was trying to tell. So
Chris,
I'll throw this over to you, Ben. There you go.
Oh, I was going to say, I just want to throw an honorable mention before we get to the message of the series. An honorable mention, I think the best actor of the series that portrayed the best character, I think, like believable, nailed the mannerisms of the character and everything. It had to have been Joel Edgerton as Uncle Owen. I think he, to me, like I said, Obi-Wan's like an 8 out of 10, Vader's 8 out of 10, Reva's like somewhere 7.5, 8 out of 10 range. Like to me, Owen is the closest. Like he's like a 9.5 probably. Like I think Joel nailed that character. So I think he nailed the character perfectly, and Bonnie coming back as Beru was great as well. But so overall for the message of the series, I think they did a really good job delivering the message of like getting Obi-Wan hope back. Like, as we mentioned, we have our issues and whatnot with the series here and there, but like they did a good job of delivering their own message of, like, I would say getting Obi-Wan from the point he was like kind of like down, not believing in the Jedi, etc., to getting back into it and like having hope again. Like, and they did a good job of that through multiple avenues, really, between Leia, seeing Leia's character develop from the first to the last episode. Like her character development, I think, was done really well, which obviously helped Obi-Wan. And then seeing Reva, even though her character was kind of had some hiccups in the story points, I would say, but for Obi-Wan's viewing her, like going from this youngling to where she was now to turning and everything, I think he did they showed a good job with him, showing him hope in that regard. And then just wrapping the series like with him having hope, like through seeing like Qui-Gon and like getting basically like all that feel good stuff by the finale, like I feel like was a perfect like crescendo for Obi-Wan's character. I thought they did a good job of that. And then even just delivering the message of hope for other characters in the series, I thought was done really well. For example, like Uncle Owen, just mentioned him. He went from basically being like, can't stand the Jedi. Like one of Joel's best lines he delivered was when he was saying the Jedi are vermin, et cetera, et cetera. Like that whole line in the first episode, like he delivered that so well. You can tell like Uncle Owen actually believed that. Like, he didn't like the Jedi. So like, seeing his character go from that to, basically being like, hey, you want to meet Luke at the end? Like, that's showing his character developed really well and has hope for Luke and Obi-Wan in the future, etc. Like, they did a really good job of, I think, laying down the foundation for that message of hope for these characters. And for me, I would say they succeeded on that. Like,
Yeah, I like the idea, of course, like all Star Wars, it usually ends up with the meaning of hope. So I think that's
Yep.
important to find that theme and see if it carries through, and certainly get a lot of hope with the way this ends. So yeah, I appreciated that sentiment. What about you, Matthew? If you could pick one
Yeah.
big message that this thing was trying to set up, and did it deliver?
I mean, you guys said it perfectly. I mean, everything. I'd say hope in the next generation, hope in what's coming, specifically because with Leia, with Roken, those two especially, we know. I mean, we know the role Leia plays in the Rebel Alliance, and not just the Rebel Alliance, but in the Resistance, right? I mean, we see the makings of General Leia as much as we see the makings of
Oh,
Rebel leader Leia. But even Senator Leia, whatever she ends up being able to do. So hope in that things can actually turn around, even as in the midst of despair, even as we can look back and see, oh, this thing that happened with Vader was horrible. The thing that happened with the Jedi was horrible. There's always a way forward. There is always, to take your point from the very beginning of this episode, there's always a path forward. And
Yeah.
there we go.
there you
And
go.
so I mean, even with Reva, there's always a path forward. I mean, we know with Anakin there was always a path forward. We know in our real life here, things can sometimes seem very downward and difficult and distressing. In other words, to start with D. I don't know. Damnable. But the way our choices matter, our choices to come together and take care of others, the way Leia is able to point out truth, and the way she's able to use her creativity, her size, that people look down. It's not playtime, but actually she's small enough to get into the wiring there and open up the gate there. So yeah, like you guys said, the Force isn't done with the galaxy. The Force isn't done with the Skywalker family. It really did succeed. I think specifically in terms of the narrative, like I said, it's they did succeed by doing it by really convincingly helping us feel Obi-Wan's transition from Anakin to Luke and Leia.
Great. I really like that a lot too. Go with mine. I'm going to go take a literal approach. So when they first pitched the series, Kathleen Kennedy was there on Investors Day back in 2020 of December, I believe. And she's literally just said, this is the rematch of the century. And I believe at certain points like that, like say what you will, but I feel like sometimes they almost like position the series to be like, okay, we're going to make the show kind of around the rematch. We're going to know that's the main marquee event. We're going to go ahead and build the story around that. I feel like sometimes that's how the story felt to me a little bit. But not only physically like lightsabers clashing, but like Obi-Wan trying to get his friend back once again. And that worked to a certain degree for me. I still feel like I wanted a little bit more of a dialogue between Vader and Obi-Wan in episode 6. I felt like it ended kind of quick, but then I'm also telling myself in my mind, like, Obi-Wan has already tried to win Anakin over when he initially seen him on Mustafar. So he's already tried really hard back then. He tried again 10 years later, and he's still not budging, so he's just going to cut his losses and say, okay, he's literally done. I'm walking away. But it's just like the selfish fan in me that was like, I want to see more Hayden and Obi-Wan talking back and forth for at least like another 3 minutes. But for me, I was like, in retrospect, it was like very quick. It was like, I killed Anakin and I will destroy you. And that was like the whole scene. And then he just walks away. I was like, oh, I wanted a little bit more from that, but okay.
Yeah. I completely agree with you, Chris, on that. Like, I think, like you said, it's just the greedy fan and all of us talking at this point when it comes to stuff like that. But I wish they would have done a couple more cuts between the Reva stuff and, like, I don't know, extended the Reva stuff another couple minutes and then extended the Vader stuff a couple minutes so you could do a couple more cuts, jumps back and forth. And, then you could interject some of those lines like, Obi-Wan saying something more to Vader about whatever, Padme, like, or something, or, something or another, like just something to give us a little bit more of Obi-Wan. like, don't get me wrong, obviously Obi-Wan's character's much more different than he was at the end of Revenge of the Sith. But, you know, I mean, hey, we all loved like chatty Obi-Wan during the Mustafar fight, like, you know, back and forth with Anakin. Like, so I agree with you, Chris. I wish they would have maybe given us just a little bit more in that fight versus what we got if we had a nitpick.
Yeah. So, you know, with that being said, like, did they deliver? I would say mostly on that front.
Yep.
I mean, the whole point of making a story in between A New Hope and Revenge of the Sith is like, okay, we're going to see the transition of Obi-Wan. We see him dealing with the trauma of him feeling responsible for the defeat of the Jedi. Then we see him very jovial and hello there, you know, to Luke and all those good things happening on the Falcon and just more of a cheerful attitude in general. So they did show that transition pretty good for the most part. So I was like, for the most part, it did achieve that. And kind of to wrap up the episode, the discussion, everything, I just want to go around the room and just, you know, give your final thoughts. Some things you liked, maybe there's something you didn't like, and then we'll just give it a score out of 10. I'll throw it over to Ben.
Yeah, for me, I would say overall the series was really, I would say it was good. I'm going to say really good. I would say good. It was a really good effort at the series. Like they gave Obi-Wan a solid story, solid mission. The new characters they introduced, like Reva, Roken, they were all done pretty well. The only one that I thought was a little bit mid was the Haja character. I wasn't a big fan of him, but like overall, I think the series did a good job of delivering its message. And like, you know, for me, as I mentioned, there's some negatives in the series, like, you know, just some of the mannerisms of Vader, some of the creative choices. I felt like the Inquisitors, you know, if you're going to have the Inquisitors in the series, I wish we would have had them do something. Like, you know, at this point, it was kind of the whole Knights of Ren all over again, like cool-looking characters doing nothing. So, like, to me, I wish they would have, you know, potentially, like, I again, this is like just creative complaints, but like, I wish we would have had something at the end. Like, if you're going to turn Reva good, like, forget the Luke stuff at the end. Why not have her fight the Grand Inquisitor or something while Obi-Wan's fighting Vader, kind of like mirroring Mustafar, kind of mirroring Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. So, like, just some weird creative choices, and then like other like issues with the series. I feel like Deborah Chow's directing, like it really started to air on me in like the second or third episode. I was like, man, I don't know. Like, I think she, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan. By the time we got to the end of the series, I just wasn't a big fan of her directing style for Star Wars, because I feel like there were a lot of like just weird cinematographer choices that, you know, obviously she may not be the person holding the camera, but she's the one directing what shot to take. So like, there was just some weird choices for like Vader. You know, I feel like all the ships were shot really, really weird. And like, you know, just different weird directing choices. And then even in the whole, the fifth episode, you know, like you have Obi-Wan like go in and out of the building back and forth. It's like, okay, what's going on here? So like just some weird directing choices. But you know, those are my only really negatives for the series. Like I just felt like some weird directing choices, some weird character choices. But overall, like I think the series was good. It had some good moments. Like Obi-Wan was great, Leia was really good, Reva was good, Vader was done really well. Like the action was done good. We haven't even mentioned Tala or Tal.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Her character was excellent. Like that.
Oh, yeah.
She's right there with Uncle Owen with me. Like I think those two those two are probably the best acting for this series. So you have things like that. One of my favorite side characters. I love the fifth brother through the series. I wish we'd have seen more of him like in action or something. And then I think the music slowly improved through the series. Early on, I wasn't a big fan of it. I think by the end of it, especially the music in the Vader Kenobi fight, I think was really well done. But yeah, overall for me, the series, if I had to rate it, I would give it a. Ooh, man, that's a tough one. I would probably give this series a solid 8.4 out of 10.
Okay.
8.4.
8.4 out of 10.
An 8.4. Yep.
All right.
Yeah. All right. I'll actually take this one next. So Obi-Wan Kenobi had its ups and had its downs for me. So I will say the ups outweighed the good. Things that were highlights for me are the character, obviously, of Obi-Wan, of Leia, of Darth Vader. I liked how the series started off with just the Tatooine. I like the pacing. I will say I like how fast it moved, and especially through some of the first locations and whatnot. I liked the introspective style of design of this show, where it's just 6 solid episodes of just a very much like a character study, which we haven't had anything quite like this before. As far as the action was good, I would say actually probably great most of the time. Lots of great lightsaber action in there, which we haven't seen in a while. Seeing like good prequel style lightsaber action. We're coming off the sequels where it's more like hack and slash. These are like guys that have trained their lives with lightsabers, so it's like really cool to see the pros in action. You know what I mean? And so yeah, characters, different things, Easter eggs, all that good stuff. Things that really held me back, and we really didn't talk a lot about that, is as you mentioned, the production side of things really just irked me a little bit. A lot of people are throwing around fan filmy, and I can agree with that. It did seem
the third episode.
Yeah, it just seems like the production design for me. It just seemed a little lackluster for Star Wars. I'm expecting a 6-episode series to wow me with locations, and it did. Like Alderaan looked amazing, Tatooine looked amazing, and that was pretty much the extent of it. The other locations were just kind of barren wastelands, and some of them looked like they were just filmed like in L.A. But it could have been more inventive. When I expect like the rematch of a century, I was expecting something a little bit flashier than them just like surrounded by a bunch of rocks on a barren wasteland. I feel like that could have been amped up a little bit, and certain weird shots, as you said before, Ben. You know the ships, like you never want to show a Star Destroyer from the side. It looks like definitely a fan film. Where it's just like that looks looks really cheap. Like the Star Destroyer go from this. You can do that in a comic book. That's fine.
Yeah.
But for live action, it just looks like really weird to me for some reason. And
like Star Trek, the original series with the Enterprise.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. But overall, that affected me. The music I feel was a little bit lackluster. Nothing really stood out to me. It just like the overall cinematography, like. You know, there wasn't any like Last Jedi, and again, it's not a movie, but there wasn't any like shots where I was like, oh, that's like Luke standing up to the First Order Armada on Crate, where you can see like everything in front of him, and he's just the one lonely guy. Like, there's nothing like huge and really cool, or not even huge, just like stuff like that, Chris, where it looks beautiful from a certain frame and perspective. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
how
to me, it's you see the volume. Like I feel like the more. You know, we'd be exposed to it through Book of Boba Fett, through Mando, now this show. I feel like you can almost see the volume, like they're like you can just see it. You know, you can see the background. It feels like sometimes
the Jedi training thing. Clearly, it's a circle for a reason, right?
Yeah. I didn't even think about that, but that's true.
Oh man,
sorry.
But yeah, to wrapping it up, I would rate this a 7 out of 10. I say it's good. Not great, in my opinion. Sure, is there room for improvement? Yes, but it told a story from start to finish that it really comes down to how a series starts is really important, and how a series ends is really important. If this last episode didn't like tie things up nicely, my score would have been even lower. But I'm happy to see from start to finish, it did tell a story that made sense. Obviously, of course, it has to make sense, but it was also entertaining along the way. So yeah. That's what I thought. Matthew, as the guest, you could leave us with your final thoughts on Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series.
And as the guest wearing a very Jedi-esque logo. Actually, this is the interaction he has with Jocasta Nu. If it isn't in the archives, it isn't there. The Jedi Temple. Speaking of the Jedi Temple. So I'll and I bring that up to admit a bias going in. For me, the most interesting, my favorite, most enjoyable, most engaging stories about Star Wars are Jedi stories. And so, mystical, spiritual stories that, again, especially if they tackle the Anakin Vader question, if they tackle the interconnectivity between the prequel trilogy and the late Republic era and the Empire era, showing it one coherent history, I'm always gonna just give them. They're always gonna get a bump from me going in, compared to Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, which were great. But I was always gonna actually enjoy this one more, because I'm already more invested in that story. And so, yeah, I'll start with the nitpicks. Sure, episodes 3 and 4, the intense chase wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting more of what we got in episodes 5 and 6, more of those memories and those reflections. That being said, I loved every single moment we had of a Padme recollection. Those at least 2 or 3 moments where Obi-Wan is talking to Leia about Padme and remembering how wonderful and how courageous and how intense she was and how strong she was, and how that as part of his transition to Hope is remembering, like, I mean, some of the way, the way Anakin his return is rooted in his love for Padme's son. He sees that. I think for Obi-Wan, his return to Hope is in part seeing Padme's daughter continue on her legacy. Everything about connecting the prequels to the sequels. Sorry, I guess I'm getting my nitpicks first. I'll get there and then I'll say how much I love the show. Yeah, I mean, the chase scene, I can see people quibbling or being unsure about the cinematography, especially with the shake cam. I forget what the technical term is for that. That I thought that helped show the chaos of action, but maybe people might have felt it was kind of disorienting and destabilizing. That the one scene where the first confrontation between Vader and Obi-Wan going through the dunes or whatever, I felt that was a little awkward. Just where are they going? What are they doing? He's hiding it out, but we don't quite feel the intensity there. But overall, I mean, again, I talk about what I want in a Disney or a Star Wars story. What I wanted in the Obi-Wan Kenobi story was to have this showdown, this confrontation that we got in episode 6, specifically that, and then specifically what it means for Obi-Wan's reflection. I've mentioned this multiple times, but for Luke and Leia, for the hope of the galaxy, and again with the acting and the music is different than what we're used to. It's actually a little similar to John Powell's score in Solo, so Natalie Holt has a similar influence there. I thought it was fine. I definitely, John Williams' theme really sets the tone of that transition from despair to hope that Natalie Holt, I think, brings out. We've talked about McGregor's acting. We've talked about Joel Edgerton's acting. I think the acting across the board was phenomenal, frankly. I mean, I even love Camille Nanjiani's character. A little bit of comic relief in there. So, yeah, I could keep gushing about the show. It was the one for me. It was, the prequel fan, the prequelist. I have the T-shirt, literally have the T-shirt, to say this is the show that helps us feel and experience a continued connected history between the two eras in the galaxy. So, guys, I gotta give this a 9.5. I gotta put it up there, especially again, and it's largely on the heels of episodes 5 and 6. What it gave to us, what it showed to us, and how they communicated it so brilliantly, so effectively. Those 2 episodes specifically are going to be up there. I hesitate. It's a bit recentism, but my all-time, especially with Disney Star Wars so far, it's up there for sure.
All right, so we got a 7, an 8.4, and a 9.5 on Obi-Wan Kenobi. So we were all generally positive about the show, and it's great that it's out there and it exists, and we finally have it, because we've been waiting years for this darn thing.
That's true.
And it's literally months and years and years of Ewan McGregor saying, "Oh, I'd love to come back," and I'm waiting for their call from Lucasfilm. So it was originally a movie, then it went to be a series, and it's finally here. It's crazy that we have a 6-episode series, and like you said, that takes place right between original trilogy and prequel. So it's almost like episode 3.5, in my opinion. It has so much of that linkage back to to the previous episode. But man, oh man, very, very long episode. One of our longest episodes tonight. We got a little bit off on a tangent with the paper cannon, as me and Matthew like to call it. But it was all good talk, and I want to thank you once again, man, for joining us on such short notice tonight. It wasn't initially planned, but we had a conversation about you bringing on later in the month, and well, we got you in here a little bit earlier, and I appreciate you coming on last minute, man.
Yeah, great to be here. Again, those other dates wouldn't have worked as well for me. So this was, I'm glad to come on. I should say we got 5 minutes to go. Happy Canada Day, everyone. Feel free to enjoy it if you want.
Hey,
there we go.
Hey, happy Canada Day for all the people located in Canada. Simple enough.
Like me.
Yeah, so we have our 4th of July, our Independence Day coming up here on Monday in the States. So, a lot of people are already on their longer vacation as of earlier today here on Friday as we're recording. So be safe, everybody out there that are going to the beach or going to the lake or whatever it is you do when you're not near an ocean or a lake. Just out there for a picnic or whatever you're doing. So we'll wrap it up as we always do. Where can everybody go ahead, plug everything that you have there, Matthew, for Eye On Canon, and where people can find you and what you're usually talking about online.
Yeah, so again, the Eye On Canon podcast, EYEONCANON.ION, EYE, like the Eye On Canon podcast. So you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Eye On Canon Pod, and every Monday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, Joel Davis and I talk about largely these days reviewing and talking about new books and comics that have come out. Like I mentioned, on the 4th of July, it's going to be the first episode where I'm going to be outnumbered by Americans. Quite appropriate. So we're getting Doc Holocron to talk all about looking back on the Crimson Reign crossover. We've done book reviews on Brotherhood. We're definitely going to do one on Shadow of the Sith. And sometimes we talk about news and different things that are coming out. Or sometimes if we want to talk about Kenobi, like last episode we did a whole Kenobi centered episode, and things that come up, and bringing out the canon connections there, talking about like we talked about tonight, the connections between paper canon and screen canon, but also talking about my own background in talking about religions, real world religions, and politics, and how that feeds into Star Wars, and how Star Wars can help us understand those as well. So me, both Joe and I, we've been going on 7 months now, and going pretty strong, I'd say, and enjoying it. So there's that. My personal Twitter at NEUG485, my personal Instagram at MNEUG1138. Some Star Wars in there, mostly soccer and a bit of Star Trek and a bit of other things going on, some church stuff there too. And I do want to mention the Tractor Beam. That is kind of my spin-off from the Eye On Canon podcast. Every Thursday or Friday, whenever I can get to it, 4 to 5 minutes per comic book. I don't really summarize. I'll say this: I don't really summarize the actual story. I do the publisher summary and then give my thoughts and feels and whatever. So it is kind of spoilery. So I recommend you read the comic and then listen to my thoughts, or check out Chris's summary and thoughts first and then come over to mine. However you want to engage. I'd be grateful for like and subscribe, and if you check out all that stuff.
All right. Yeah, no, it was great having you on. It was great getting your insight, man, because you have so much insight when it comes to Star Wars, lore in general, Jedi, Obi-Wan, comics, everything. I really like your spin on the galaxy far, far away. So once again, thank you very much. And Ben, what are you doing this week? Where can people find you as always?
Yeah, I'm actually going down to West Virginia on Sunday through Tuesday, so it should be fun. Going down there to visit some relatives and family we haven't seen in a while. And my grandpa's actually buried down there, so we're going to go down and go to his grave. And we're taking my grandma down there just so she can go down, because she's not like driving the best, I would say. So so we're all going down, and it'll be a lot of fun. So if that plans. And then I'm going to be getting back to lifting here really soon. So you can find me on Instagram at @RealBenMaynard to like just follow along me getting like super shredded over the next coming months and weeks ahead.
Nice.
And then other than that, my yearly 4th of July tradition is watching Independence Day. Like that's a must for me. Like,
Oh.
I mean, hey, what's better than Bill Pullman and Will Smith like uniting the world against aliens? Like that's great. So always a classic, and that's always the tradition every year. Watch Independence Day, people.
Well, there you go. As for me on the channel, as I said before, you can expect my review of Shadow of the Sith coming momentarily. If anything goes well, I'll probably have it finished by the weekend, maybe even by tomorrow. We'll see. But I'm pretty engaged with the book right now, so we got that coming up. My comic book reviews will be coming up. Usually I would have them up by now. I was recording on Friday, but the store just had a slight delay, but they will be coming for those of you that want to know and see what actually happens in those pages. But everything else will be back here next Friday at 9 o'clock. We'll be back with Milton, and we'll be doing something here, whether it be news or something else. We'll see what happens. Barring on any big ass breaking news, we'll have to figure it out then. But so for Matthew, for Ben, for Chris, aka Starrapter, this was Outer Rim Transmission number 64. Thank you for joining us, and transmission.